there is a civil war ongoing in Cameroon. That civil war is between the southern Cameroon's people and the government of the Republic of Cameroon. These were two countries that the United Nations, by their resolutions, tried to bring together to form a new country, the Federal Republic of the Cameroons, that La République du Cameroon decided to dissolve unilaterally, unconstitutionally, and rather preferred to annex the people of the southern Cameroons. And today there is no longer any federal republic that was contemplated when the United Nations forced these two countries to come together. So this is a failed decolonization that has resulted to the annexation of the people of the southern Cameroons. The UN has never looked into this matter like they have for other conflicts in Asia and Ukraine. No. For the 7 years that this conflict has lasted, 1.5 million people displaced, hundreds of thousands of refugees, more than 500 villages and settlements destroyed, burned to ashes, and more than 50,000 lives have been wasted. These are human beings. We are calling on the good people of Brazil and on the good people of the African diaspora to do everything possible to engineer a peaceful resolution to this bloody conflict. They can do that by engineering a proper mediation of this conflict or refer the matter to the International Court of Justice for arbitration so the two parties can present themselves for a peaceful resolution of this conflict. Thank you very much. I'm the president of the Southern Cameroons. My name is Samuel Ikomisako. Thank you.
Stand with Ambazonia. Empower ABC Amba TV. We are calling on Ambazonians around the world to unite and uplift ABC Amba TV, Ambazonian Broadcasting Corporation. In this critical time of war, ensuring the station's survival is more important than ever. But what does ABC Amba TV truly represent for Ambazonia?
At the heart of Ambazonia's war of independence, ABC Amba TV stands as a beacon. Years of recolonization, annexation, and French Cameroon's oppressive occupation of the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia have led to our exclusion. Our identity was hidden, our history distorted, our sovereignty denied. Queen of England is aware that the British Southern Cameroons were never a colony under France.
Since its inception in 2018, ABC Amba TV has been our lifeline.
Months of diplomacy have failed to resolve the crisis as fear grows over an imminent Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Our work in the dark is our chance to tell our stories to the world, to give voice to the voiceless and broadcast the truth of our struggle.
We are serious about executing this revolution.
It has become a vital arm of our government in wartime, making diplomacy achievable and showcasing our untold stories.
ABC Amba, you guys know how important ABC is for this, our quest for international recognition.
Your donations can make a world of difference. Every bit of support helps keep our stories alive, our presence known, and our fight in the global conversation.
The moment they notice that we are no longer on air, they think that, oh, maybe La République has succeeded. This is about Amabazonia. One thing we must always remember.
Where would we be without ABC Amba TV? Let's ensure we never have to find out.
A revolution is a temporary state of insanity to bring about sanity.
Mobilize, donate, stand with Ambazonia, donate to ABC Amba TV.
Together, let's write the next chapter of our history.
It is better to light the candle than to curse the dark.
Support ABC Amba TV campaign. Ambazonia Independence, voice for the voiceless. Mobilize for change.
Good evening, fellow Ambazonians, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to this very important broadcast. Ambazonia this week with Tarh Paddy King. Tonight, exceptionally, we're going to be having the three barristers after a very long time. We're having Barrister Mbeseha, Barrister Fru John Nsoh, and the highly expected and awaited Barrister Valentine Gana. Towards the end of tonight's program, we'll be having Commander Elvis to brief us on what are some of the achievements on the ground as Ambazonia has been locked down for at least a week today. When is it ending? Why is it ending? So what are we expecting to see in the days ahead as we prepare to celebrate or commemorate our Independence Day celebration since the war was declared upon us? It was the first session or the first presidential debate between Harris and Trump, and the polls have changed tremendously. The arguments and the stretches doesn't necessarily seem to twist. Global politics has been tremendously affected, and we will be looking into that to find out where is Ambazonia's place in this whole bubble. Whoever goes into the White House may mean a lot in foreign policy. I'm talking about United States foreign policy. In talking about United States foreign policy, during the debate, Harris mentioned that she is in for a two-state solution for Palestine and Israel. That sounds like something Amazonia should be interested in. That is where we will begin this discussion with the barristers. But first, I'll give them an opportunity to present themselves before we find out what Onye Okpala has to say, since she has been processing the reports. Stay tuned. Good evening, Barrister Gana, Barrister Fru, Barrister Mbeseha. Barrister Gana, maybe you want to consider to have your camera on since our discussion will begin. I'll begin with you, Barrister Fru. Maybe you want to greet the people since you're on camera. And then with you, Barrister Mbeseha. And Barrister Gana, you want to greet Ambazonians so that we can find out what is happening in the pre-session and we will get to the debate. I'll begin with you, Barrister Fru, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for another Saturday. All our people, the Ambazonians in the front, around the world, and in the diaspora. What I mean diaspora, I'm thinking mostly of North America and Europe, and then of course around the world. Today is a Saturday, another day that we are on for us to continue to discuss and to find ways of resolving our quagmire. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Barrister Mbeseha, please.
Once more, thank you, Paddy, for having this Saturday educational session. I'm very pleased to be here with my colleagues, and I hope all of us will learn something from it. Whether it is about two-state issue in Gaza, whether it is about Ukraine, whether it is about anything, those issues have only pushed Ambazonia to the international scene to analyze their own issues, comparing what we have to what is going on around the world. It's a very good educational session. I always say by the close of the day, most Ambazonians, if not all, should learn something from what we put out there for us to consume. We should be able to get something that will help us prosecute our own problem. Over to you.
Amazing. Mr. Gana, please. It's been a while.
Yes, good afternoon, Comrade Paddy. It's an honor to be here with my two senior colleagues, Barrister Mbeseha and Barrister Fru John Nsoh. Thanks to ABC for making this happen, and thanks to you also for being steadfast in ensuring that we have this corridor, this avenue, this platform to educate our people, to discuss with our people, to encourage our people, and to use events around the world as a lens towards seeing Ambazonians on flight and hope towards a resolution that emancipates our people from the chains of slavery. So thank you.
Amazing. So, and you have just ushered us into something that's quite important. Onye, can you hear me, please?
Very well, I can hear you, Mr. Tarh.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to know that your connection is well suited to hear me. And now this is something that takes us from the debate that is changing the trajectory in the polls into now the preliminary sessions of the UN General Assembly 79th session. We actually understand that, Onye, you have been working on the reports. Please, can you tell us what you have before we get into that debate, please?
Oh, well, very well, Mr. Tarh. From the moment, an Ambazonian was appointed or elected into that position, we all got very interested. Well, just not that, even last year we followed this UN General Assembly session very squarely, and we brought you up to speed with every of the detail that was spoken. And we just feel that probably this year, as the 79th session sits, we'll definitely see something new, something great, and something that would definitely affect the lives of Amabazonia. And so the 79th United Nations General Assembly session is currently on the way. As of yesterday, the 13th of September, nothing specific has happened except for the opening speech of the President of the General Assembly. Now, having opened on the 10th of September, this year's session intends to be very crucial as world leaders gather again to address pressing global challenges, including climate change, which is a regular occurrence, poverty, inequality, and of course, ongoing conflicts and wars. And again, we hope that the one in the Cameroons, Ambazonia specifically, will be addressed. Now, building on the momentum of previous declarations and commitments, participants will focus on enhancing international cooperation, promoting the responsible use of antimicrobials, and advancing the development of new treatments to safeguard global health. Key events expected to hold in this assembly would include a lot of things that I would mention later on. But then, during its resumed 10th Agency Emergency Special Session, the General Assembly adopted a resolution that, as of the 10th of September 2024, it has upgraded Palestine's rights at the United Nations as an observer state. And at this point, I would say it doesn't matter what they are called. The issue on ground is that they have been recognized as an observer state. And, the organization also urged the Security Council to favorably consider its full membership. And this was done under the watch of Philemon Yang. Philemon, our very own Philemon Yang. Ambazonian's Philemon Yang, who is rightfully aware of the sufferings, the marginalization of the oppressed people of Ambazonia. He is aware because he is a son of Ambazonia. Now, for Palestinians, as of this moment, they have their additional rights and privileges of participation of the state of Palestine, and they will be given effect through the following modalities as of the 79th session of the General Assembly. Now, that includes the right to be seated amongst member states in alphabetical order, the right to make statements on behalf of a group, the right to introduce, submit, and co-sponsor proposals and amendments, raise procedural motions, including points of order and requests to put proposals to the vote, be elected as officers in the plenary and the main committees of the General Assembly, and fully and effectively participate in UN and international conferences and meetings convened under the auspices of the General Assembly or as appropriate under the auspices of other organs of the United Nations. However, the State of Palestine Assembly ought to put forward its candidature to United Nations organ. How else do you want to put this? They've gone in, they are in. They were at this point with Ambazonians at some point, but here they are, way ahead, way forward. What did they do differently? But let's get a video first.
Honorable President, this is not merely a procedural matter. This is a historic moment for us. The State of Palestine should be seated in the General Assembly among member states, full members. This is history in the making. For 140 or more than that of us, the State of Palestine possesses all the legal elements of a state.
I have been informed that all arrangements have been made to have Palestine seated where so.
Now, I needed us to get that video because just like I asked, what did they do differently? What have they done rightly, or what didn't they do? Oh, well, while we're trying to answer that question, another significant highlight is the speech by Fru John Nsoh, where he talked about the climate change and how it is devastating the planet and endangering countless lives and societies. You would say that's like every other speech, right? But then he mentioned the conflict and the armed violence rage from Sudan to Haiti, from Ukraine to Gaza Strip, living trials of death, destructions, and wanton misery, all of that being mentioned. But then he failed to mention the wanton arrest, the kidnappings, the killings, the war going on in the Cameroons, especially in his own place, Amabazonia, the southern Cameroons. He mentioned that peace and security will continue to be of paramount importance. But then, how much peace has he brought to Amabazonia? What official statement has he made so far concerning the conflict, concerning the war, however he would have wanted to put it? What is stopping Fru John Nsoh from prioritizing conflict prevention in Amabazonia rather than resorting to weapons to settle the differences, because it will help in reducing current high military expenditures, which complicates the achievement of the sustainable development goals which he is seeking for? These were his words, but then I thought to give the reverse in a question for just to drive home my points this evening. But then for journalists and analysts, everyone is actually still looking forward to what happenings would still come up. I mean, between the 22nd to the 23rd, it will be the Summit of the Future. And now this summit aims to reaffirm commitments to the Sustainable Development Goals and the UN Charter while enhancing international cooperation to address global challenges. So we try to stay hopeful, hoping that something new would come up. I mean, if Palestine can get it, why not for Amabazonia? Then there is the general debate. Now, this is a session that the world is waiting for. The debate is set to take place from the 24th to the 28th of September 2024, where heads of states and governments will discuss solutions to intertwined global challenges. Then, of course, the high-level meetings. Now, the UN General Assembly will convene meetings on antimicrobial resistance, and that will take place on the 26th of September. And of course, sea level rise, which is focusing on building common understanding and promoting international cooperation. Well, the session will conclude on the 30th of September for the 79 UN General Assembly. So we hope that before the 30th of September, Ambazonians will definitely hear something good. I think at this point, Mr. Tarh, we ought just to stay optimistic. But then there are some pertinent questions begging for answers that I have added there. And I'm sure that the barristers and the gentlemen, Barrister Gana, and of course, all the barristers in their studio would definitely do us well to, answer some of those questions.
You did, I must commend that you did exceptionally well in this coverage. It's funny how Fru John Nsoh gives a speech, mentions every other conflict, but wouldn't have conflict between the Cameroons in his statement. We're going to get into that, but I would like us to give the grace to Palestine and to begin our conversation there. Barrister Gana, you probably would have heard that speech during the preliminary session. You would have seen the reaction from the ambassador. The video we just watched, there was the ambassador of Egypt acknowledging it as a history that is being made. The story of Palestine is not very different or further from ours. There are some differences, but I think the similarities could be more. What do we make of this? Talk to us, Barrister Gana.
It's a difficult question and a difficult transition for the state of Palestine. It's a good thing for the Palestinians that they have been given observer status. Their case and our case, I think, are very different. If you really understand the way that whole area, the greater Palestine, evolved into having the state of Israel exist, the Transjordan morphing, and then having the boundaries of Israel the way it is. For them to be given observer status, you have to understand that for it to move from observer status to them being a state, there has to be no veto amongst the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. And it's difficult to see how they will get past all of those 5 members in there. I think that the observer status again is good, but the potential for a Palestinian state will come more out of a negotiation between the Palestinians and the state of Israel. Do the Palestinians deserve a state? Absolutely, they do. But the Palestinians are less in control of the possibility of them having a state than we think. Why do I say this? I say this because the influence of Iran is bigger as an influence towards the Palestinians in deciding if they have the state, why they have a state, than the influence of Palestinians. And Iran is not interested in a Palestinian state. Iran is interested in the destruction of the state of Israel. The faction of the Palestinians that Iran is supporting, Hamas, is not interested in coexisting with Israel as a state. Hamas is interested in the destruction of the state of Israel. So your aspiration to have a state goes in conflict with your aspiration to destroy the state of Israel. So both Israel and Palestinians have to choose. The Palestinians have to choose whether it is a Palestinian state that they want or it is the destruction of the state of Israel that they want. And Israel has to choose also what terms of concessions they have to make in order for the Palestinian state to exist. What is the situation of Gaza? How do you have 2 satellite territories with Israel divided? So there's a lot to negotiate, but having an observer status is good. It shows them, or it shows that issue being bent a little bit by the current events, the current war that is taking place in Gaza. But how that translates into them having a state, it's still a pretty truncated path. That's my opinion on
that. Okay, Barrister Fru, please. I know you're boiling. Talk to us.
No, I am not boiling. I am listening very, very, very closely to the intellectual expose of my junior colleague. And he's right. The case of the Palestinians is way different from our case. Palestine was one in the days of old, in the days of Jesus Christ. The Jews were part of Palestine. They were in Palestine like Palestinians and how they scattered themselves around the world and went and built a Zionist movement to come back in 1948 and claim a state inside a state remains a mystery for all of us. But that is the greatest conspiracy of the white people around the world, from Europe and America. They connived with the leadership of Britain to carve out the state of Israel inside a state of that already existed called Palestine, where the Jews were part of. In our case, we were not decolonized like other African states that were colonized, or would I say, placed under the guardianship of European nations or strong powers in the world. That is where there is a marked difference. Should Palestine be looking for a state? It's a question in my mind. Because Palestine is their state. Where the Jews have settled, the Zionist Jews, not the Jews of old. Because if you look at is the present day of Israel, it's Zionist. It has nothing to do with Christianity of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Mm-hmm. These people are the worst criminals on the face of the earth because they left the Palestine and went to Europe and other places on exile and were transformed into whatever we call Israel today. They are Zionists. You cannot compare Netanyahu. You cannot think that Netanyahu has anything to do about the life and of Jesus Christ, of the Christian life of the founder of the Christian movement in Palestine by Jesus Christ, our Savior, who was born there in Galilee, which was part of Palestine at the time. So my issue is what they are doing now, giving an observer status to Palestine, is just window dressing. These people own the land. The average Arab will tell you that is Palestine, that is their country. That's why you see Iran behaving the way that Iran is a power broker in the area. And there is nothing that can happen there without Iran. Iran does not even want a two-state solution, which is also another way of destroying Palestine. Because it has been done. The same United Nations, the British carve out the state of the Jewish state, the Zionist state, and the United Nations endorsed it in 1948. The only thing left is for the rest of Palestine to accept that state to exist, and they too have to exist as a state. But the rest of the Arab world, particularly Iran, will not want to see a two-state solution. They think that the Jews should be destroyed, or they should become part of Palestine and remain as they were in the days of old. But for our case, is very clear. In our case, we have never been part of La République du Cameroun in any shape or form. We were under the Germans, just like they too were under Germans. But the Germans were, I don't know, you cannot call the Germans colonizers. The Germans seized the area, the whole area, Gabon, Cameroon. When I mean Cameroon, I mean La République du Cameroon, the southern Cameroons and northern Cameroon, and the Congo. All that was under the Germans. But since the Germans were defeated in the First World War, the conference decided to create trusteeship agreements and divided the southern Cameroon and the northern Cameroon went to the British, and the others went to the French. The time for decolonization came and the United Nations failed us. It is a different story from that of Palestine. The
It
United
is indeed.
Nations was not at the origin. Let me finish. The United Nations was not at the origin of the creation of the state of Israel. It was the British. Because they were, like the Germans, they were in control of Palestine. So they carved out a place for the Jewish state, and the Jewish state that they carved out was the Zionists who were already out of Israel. The real Jews that remained in Palestine are not Zionists. They were the original Christians that the world now enjoys through the life and through the birth and life of Jesus Christ.
Just listening to this argument underlines something very, very clear here. And I want to situate it so that Barrister Mbeseha can react before we get back to Barrister Gana to fill in something about Ambazonia, and then we move on with the conversation. Barrister Mbeseha, look, in light with self-determination, a people having a right to exist, by whatever shape or form, you have listened to the two viewpoints. Do you think that this recognition by the United Nations it has anything to be excited about, and can it be of any hope to the people of Ambazonia who are seeking some form of the United Nations addressing their issue at this level, whether as a participatory or observant status or having a seat? Talk to us. I know you have a lot to talk about, and the floor is all yours. Please talk to us.
Thank you for having me. See, there's a lot of confusion, lots of mixture of facts. Let us start from this so-called recognition or whatever thing at the United Nations to a few days ago. We have forgotten that Palestine, the state of Palestine, has been at the United Nations since 2012. Their members, they were observer members. There were only two members who were only observers, Palestine and the Vatican. But what was their status until recently? They were observers, they didn't have the right to vote. The Vatican does not have the right to vote. They are members of the United Nations, they are observers. But what happened 2 days ago is that they elevated that non-voting member to a full-fledged member. They can be seated at any organization of the United Nations. They can cast their own vote, just like Cameroon, just like the United States, just like any other member country. That's what they have become now. Then take it back to the important issue of what we have to learn from this. I think, and I strongly feel that I'm right. You see, the issue of Palestine is very, very similar to Ambazonia. We have almost the same facts. This is why they are the same. After the First and Second World War, the territory called Palestine was placed under the administration of the UK. It is the UK that administered Palestine, just like they administered British Southern Cameroon. Came 1948, they decided to create a state of Israel. But not just a state of Israel, they created a state of Israel, a Jewish state, exceptionally a Jewish state, dominated by Zionism, and carved out of Palestine, just like the British carved out of British administered Cameroon. Two states called Northern Cameroon and Southern Cameroon. They carved out of that territory that they were given to administer another country, which they call Israel, and created it there. That's okay. But the most important thing is for us to know that Israel, as created in 1948 officially, it has its own boundaries, defined by defined boundaries. The state of Israel had defined boundaries. Yeah, as we've been singing here, Southern Cameroon had defined boundaries. So the state, the Jewish state, the Zionist state, no matter you like it or not, was there. But it had their own boundaries to keep to them. But like Southern Cameroon, the Zionist state, Israel, has left its own boundaries. and crossed since 1967 and taken up lands that were never theirs. They have crossed their boundaries. Officially, they are international trespassers, which is what has brought us to this story. And so, is this similar to Ambazonia? Of course it is. We've been crying of how the southern French Cameroon has crossed into our own country, past the official boundaries, and they are occupying our own territory. That's exactly how Israel is occupying Palestine, which it is described in international law, even by the Israelis themselves, occupied territories. They call those boundaries that are occupied illegally occupied territories. They are not their lands, which is the cause of the war. Whether you like Iran or not, the people have the right to fight to resist. Palestine and the Arab world have never denied a two-state federation, a two-state solution. They've always admitted a two-state solution. But why has the two-state solution not worked up to this point? It is not because Palestine rejected it. It is not because Iran rejected it. No. It is because over the years, Israel has occupied all those very lands illegally that would have constituted the Palestinian state. Here, Gaza, they call it the Gaza Strip. Then you come some part of mainland. Okay, in between, Israel has occupied those lands since 1967. Since the 1967 war, they want to occupy those lands illegally. They are still there. But seeing what has happened just now, what has led to this now, that will take us to the analysis of the United Nations. What has caused this thing now for them to be moved from observer status with no voting rights to full-fledged member with voting rights? They are the developing circumstances, what they call the emergency circumstances. They are attacked from Gaza, by the Gazians, from Gaza to Israel. It killed so many people. The response by Israel took many other millions. That has now focused the whole world on the emergency nation in the situation of Palestine. And then they have cannot address the so-called two-state federation. So what Kamala Harris said, it's not new. It has been there. Bill Clinton invited the Palestinian leader. They went to Kennedy, whatever thing there in Washington, and they were discussing the two-state federation. So it is not new. What has been lacking and shamelessly lacking is the duplicity of the West, one, the duplicity of the Americans. Because they have the power, we have been saying that Britain has the power, France has the power. They have the power to tell Israel, no, keep to your borders. Keep to your borders. They have, in some circumstances, the American government, different governments, have subsidized money.
Interest points.
They have aided Israel with money to use that very money to build settlements in occupied territories, which makes it difficult, if not impossible for them to move. Those are double standards. So when Harris or any American politician is talking on both sides of his mouth, they have refused to see what is the root cause of this problem. Just like you and me have been saying, as far as Ambazonia is concerned, what is the root cause of the problem? The root cause of our Ambazonia problem is the invasion of the Republic and forcefully taking over our territory, forcefully dissolving our government and occupying us. What's the root causes of the problem of Israel? It is not because they created the state of Israel. The Israelis could have been there. They were forcefully created. Just like we today, Ambazonia, were not fighting to recover northern Cameroon. That was done by the UK. We're not fighting to recover them. They don't remember where they are. But we are fighting to say, well, whatever is left of us, just like whatever is left of Palestine, let us have our rights. There's a boundary between us and the Cameroon. There are boundaries between Israel, the Jewish state of Israel, and Palestine. So if the Israelis can take out all their illegally constructed settlements on occupied territories, that might go a long way. But would they do this? I doubt. Why? Because the people ought to put pressure on them. The whole West in general, and the Americans in particular, they are speaking on both sides of their mouth.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Okay. Barristers, listening to you, Barrister Mbeseha, you seem to have brought some form of balance in this discussion, which I think it's very enriching. And the world is now understanding that Amabazonia is a necessary force to reckon with, especially with the way we process global politics and happenings of the world. Barrister Gana, I'm coming again to you now to focus a little bit on how Amabazonia can learn from this, because I would call this a diplomatic achievement, though Barrister Mbeseha believes that it is as a result of the emergent situations. Some would think that it is a major achievement. How can Amabazonia profit from this whole thing to make progress in our diplomacy?
Comrade, before I answer the specific question that you've asked, I just want to again differ from Barrister Mbeseha a little bit. Barrister Mbeseha presents a scenario of Israel as one that has never made an attempt to achieve peace. Barrister Mbeseha also presents the situation of the United States as a broker or a stakeholder that has been absolutely and totally duplicitous in terms of its attempts to broker peace, which is not totally true, and I'll tell you why. In 1991, after the first Gulf War, Bush won. Met with the Arabs, and they agreed to push Israel towards brokering a peace with the Palestinians. And after that first Gulf War, the Prime Minister of Israel at that time was Yitzhak Shamir. And Bush one forced Yitzhak Shamir, kicking and screaming, to go negotiate with the Palestinians in what was eventually called the Oslo Accords. And they brokered peace within the Oslo Accords. And again, Barrister Mbeseha was very right that they brought them to Camp David. Yasser Arafat was there, Yitzhak Shamir was there, and later Ehud Barak was there to broker peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Why did the Oslo Accords fail? Why did they not take hold? And Barrister Mbeseha is missing a key piece of this puzzle. It's not whether you like Iran or not. There were two factions at that time. The governing faction of the Palestinians was the PLO under Yasser Arafat. And that was the leading party that was negotiating peace in the Oslo Accords. But when it came time for Yasser Arafat to sign and agree to the two-state solution as prescribed by the Oslo Accord, he backed up. He walked away from it. Why did Arafat walk away from it? Because Arafat was afraid of Hamas. Arafat was afraid of the Islamic Jihad, which was what has morphed into Hamas here. And that's because the PLO wants a two-state solution that leads to coexistence with the state of Israel. But Hamas, aligned with Iran, is not about a two-state solution. It is about the total destruction of the state of Israel. So don't be too easy to let Palestinians off the hook. And you cannot say that Israel is a nation that is not inclined for peace. I wouldn't agree with that, and the facts bear witness to that. Because after the last war that they fought, where Israel captured the whole Sinai to make peace with Egypt, between Israel and Egypt, then under Anwar Sadat, Israel gave up the whole Sinai. Israel gave up all the land it captured from the Egyptians. Israel has given up all the lands it captured from Jordan during that last war for peace. And that peace has lasted a long. In fact, the Egyptians themselves, or the Arabs themselves, or the Muslims, assassinated Anwar Sadat principally because he made peace with Israel. So to portray Israel as this Zionist movement that is absolutely not inclined to make peace is not true. Now, there are elements within Israel, the far right, represented by some current ministers in Netanyahu's coalition, who have this illusion about a greater Israel, thinking that they can take out all the Palestinians. And that is wrong. Again, he talked about the settlement, the increasing building of settlements by Israel on Palestinian lands is totally wrong and does not serve the interest for peace. But in terms of Israel having had honest brokers who wanted to make peace with the Palestinians, they have. And don't forget that though Israel is now in Gaza and has also seized the Philadelphia corridor, which is the corridor between that leads from Gaza into Egypt, Israel occupied that right up to 2005. And who was the Israeli leader who decided to pull out of Gaza and who decided to pull out of the Philadelphia corridor to give chance for peace? Who was that Israeli leader? General Sharon was the one. And General Sharon campaigned in 2001 to become the Prime Minister of Israel under the slogan that he was never going to pull out of Gaza and that he was never going to pull out of the Philadelphia corridor. When he pulled out of Gaza, what did Hamas do? Hamas immediately overthrew, they won legislative elections in the Gaza Strip. Then they overthrew the PLO in Gaza because they never won the executive authority in Gaza. Hamas only won the legislative elections there. Hamas did not just overthrew the PLO, but they killed all the Palestinian leaders in Gaza, pushing some of them from rooftops to their death. And all the aid that came into Gaza, what did Hamas do? Did Hamas use that aid to make the lives of the Palestinians better? No. They used all of that money to dig tunnels, again positioning themselves towards the absolute destruction of the state of Israel. So Hamas has to choose if it wants to make peace with Israel or if it wants to destroy Israel. They cannot have it both ways. Now, coming to Ambazonia, yes, Barrister Mbeseha was right that there are similarities between the Palestinians and Ambazonians because these were all areas that were being governed by colonial masters. Again, Britain was a colonial master in Palestine and Transjordan area. And it wasn't really the will of Britain to settle the Jewish diaspora in Palestine. In fact, Barrister Mbeseha, I think you are very knowledgeable enough to understand that Britain and the United Nations at that time, even contemplating giving part of the land close to Uganda to the Jewish diaspora. They contemplated settling in Israel there, and the Jews said no, they did not want any part of that. Now, being the fact that we're both Ambazonia and the Palestinians are all areas that had colonial authority over them and never got rightfully settled is true. But what the cases that are more close to ours, include the case of Zanzibar and the case of Namibia. Because again, as Barrister Nsoh rightfully said, during the Treaty of Versailles 1919 to 1922, they created two trust territories out of what was called the German Cameroon at that time. Same thing they did with Namibia, where they had Namibia as a trusteeship and they affixed it to be governed by South Africa. Same thing they did with Zanzibar. Zanzibar became a trusteeship territory and later united with Tanzania as a federation, which still remains a federation to this day. But he's right. We can extract examples in the fact that if we fight for our state, the fight belongs to us. And the world is governed by aggressive force. What Thibault Nach says sometimes that the international community does not exist, he's right to a certain extent because there is no collusive grouping that always makes unanimous decisions as the international community. You have to fight for your rights as the South Sudanese did, as the Palestinians are doing, as the Namibians did, and then you have to lobby the powers that be who will eventually take your case towards a mechanism. President Sarko prefers a plebiscite, or towards a mechanism where you would where your state is going to be ushered. In the case of Sudan or Sudan there, it was through a referendum. And again, that was through Bush too, who took the case there through Colin Powell and Richard Danforth there. And eventually they had a referendum in the South that led to the state that led to the state there. So yes, we can extract some examples from the Palestinians. But the example that we should also extract from the Palestinians is that one of the reasons that the Palestinian state does not exist right now was because it's not just words. It's because of the division between the PLO and Hamas, or the offshoot of the Islamic Jihad there. If you come to Ambazonia, part of the reason why we cannot address the international community with one voice is because we have the ADF wanting to pursue its own strategy towards self-aggrandizement. We have Sako, who is a legitimate offshoot of Skakuf and the interim government under Ziziku that got kidnapped there. So Ambazonians are just as divided, almost as Hamas is divided with the PLO, which hinders them from having a united and negotiating front towards making the hard concessions. To have peace, sometimes you have to make the hard concessions that take you through the negotiation table to statehood. So I don't know if that explanation helps, but through the facts as I understand them, that is my opinion.
I'm very happy, Barrister Mbeseha, that I had lawyers who really understand the meaning of their words to have tackled this very complex issue. It's a debate that when you look at even the United States political race, you have those who have criticized Harris that whatever she's saying, she has just been told to say. She really doesn't understand the technicalities of what she's proposing. But then I want us to move forward with this conversation to look at what is our interest. We cannot talk for the Palestinians all day. This is a Saudi Cameroonian born, whom Barrister Fru says clearly. Yes, you're going to, I'm giving the mic to you, Barrister Fru. Barrister Fru believes that this man is no longer an Ambazonian. He finds himself at the hem of the UNGA 79 session, makes an address, a very lengthy address, cites conflicts, even those at his backyard, but strategically ignores the conflict. Let us even say the conflict between what they call les separatists. He should have at least said the separatists are challenging his government. This man didn't say it. And that's why Barrister Fru, Barrister Mbeseha, Barrister Gana, I don't agree with anyone who chooses to water down the appointment or brushes it as something that doesn't have meaning, the appointment of Philemon Yang where it is, because having a Saudi Cameroonian born, not showing any interest of his brothers dying at a stage, at that level, it's a diplomatic blow. I don't care what who says, but that's just my opinion. So I'm handing the mic. You have a lot to speak. I want you, if you have to react to some of the things that have been said by Mr. Fru, I'd like you to do it a little bit, very brief, so that you can move on to Philemon Yang's attitude, which is what is of great concern to us this evening. Please talk to us.
Thank you very much. I will not belabor the point on Palestine, but I want to make a complete disagreement with this issue, saying that Palestine, the issue of Palestine and that of Amabazonia are the same. They are not. Palestine was, Israel was created in 1948, forcefully created. These were Palestinians who went on exile. If you read the Bible, the Jews went on exile. And not all the Jews left there. And those that were brought back to settle and in 1948, they carved out a country that they belonged to and gave them as their own country. It's different from The Southern Cameroon was never created by any UN or by anybody. It existed before 1948. Let me finish. Yeah, I just want to make that. I just want to clear that air. That there is no similarity in fact or in law between Palestine, the Israelis in Palestine, and Ambazonia in La République du Cameroon, so to speak. Because if you make that comparison, you are saying that we were part of La République du Cameroon that was settled somehow. No. Having said that, let me come back to address the issue of Philemon Yang. Like you rightly said, Paddy, Philemon Yang does not consider himself a citizen of the Southern Cameroons anymore. Because he is so hate the Southern Cameroon in such a way that he goes and makes a ridiculous speech in the United Nations talking about conflict areas in the world and forgets from where he's coming from. La République du Cameroon is in conflict with Southern Cameroon. They were at war. Why did he leave it out? I want to argue that serious people in the United Nations will ask him in private, why did you cite conflict areas in the world? The war in Palestine, the war in Gaza and Israel, and the war in Ukraine, and you left out the war from where you are coming from. It's ridiculous for a human being. Well, he is not from the Southern Cameroon, but he is from Cameroon, La République du Cameroon. Right now, he has taken his citizenship. He doesn't consider the Southern Cameroon his country. Therefore, at the time that he was making that address in the United Nations, he was speaking to the world. He was voted by the world. He is representing the world, and he talked about conflicts around the world and ignore conflict in Africa. The only conflict right now in Africa, the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon. What kind of human being is that? He is worse than his father, Solomon Tandem Muna. Because at least his father stayed a Southern Cameroonian. He has chosen his citizenship. But in doing that, with hatred, wickedness aforethought, he forgot that there is a conflict. The only active conflict on the continent of Africa is in Cameroon. And he cited only Israel and Gaza and Ukraine. Let's not belabor the point. He will serve the 12 months that he's there and will be the most ridiculous president of the General Assembly.
But Barrister Mbeseha, and this is where I come to you with the mic. We've had this discussion about Philemon Yang. I understand that when I did ask the question during an interview with the president did not downplay the feelings of Ambazonians who express dissatisfaction with Philemon Yang's election, nomination, or selection. And just as though they knew, like prophets, this is Philemon Yang that will mount a war stage, born by a Southern Cameroonian and a person that we cannot ignore in history, a man from Oku, at least his mother is from Oku, standing in front of the United Nations General Assembly pre-session opening address as president, talks about every other important thing happening in the world and chooses not to talk about over or more than 50,000 of his brothers who have been wasted in less than a decade. I would say just over 5 years. This is a great concern, and Ambazonians would really want to hear what you have to say.
Again, thank you, Paddy. This is what I have to say. Before I say it,
Yeah, but Mbeseha, please. Mbeseha, do me a favor. Try to just sit straight. You may want to move a little bit towards your left hand. Yeah.
I'm okay.
Try to. Yeah, that's okay now. That's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
What I was trying to
Please
say is,
try to
what I was trying to say
try to
is,
sit a little
when I
bit
say
straight
this,
and avoid moving, please, so that we can have a good image of you. Good. Go ahead, please.
when I say there's an analogy between Southern Cameroon problem and the Palestine, I mean it. By the analysis, you find something very similar. Well, Mr. Fru agrees or not, that's an opinion. But let me go to what Mr. Gana said. See, it's the same thing that we face in Southern Cameroon right today. Yaoundé tells you, we don't know who to talk to. Why? Because there's a government under Sako, there's another one under Ayabacho, there's another one under Anu. That's what exactly what Yaoundé says. And that is exactly what Ghana was trying to make us believe. There's no government in the United Nations General Assembly among the 193 or 95 members which does not have an opposition back home. Most of them have very violent opposition back home. But the United Nations talks to the government that is sitting at the United Nations. That's a recognized government. And I've said earlier that since 2012, Palestine has been sitting at the United Nations as a non-voting member. Who sat there? Who has been sitting on that seat? Till today that we're talking, that they have been upgraded. It is a PLO. So it is not important to tell us that whether PLO is being opposed by Hamas or have this violent opposition. That's irrelevant. The recognized government of Palestine sitting at the United Nations is a PLO. Full stop. And if I can go back, I think I understand very well somehow. Hamas, which is now so much in threatening Israel, was the creation of the Americans. They encouraged opposition. Because according to them, they saw Yasser Arafat as a dictator. They wanted something that would counter it. And by that means they created Hamas. Hamas has won a city called Gaza in elections. The mainland is under the PLO. Whether they are killing themselves or not, as far as the United Nations is concerned, it is the Palestinian Authority that represents Palestine. So giving excuses that why they are opposed here left and right is simply like, for example, if they decide to go, if Yaoundé decides to agree with Sako and say, well, this is what we want to do. Then they turn around and say, well, we know that Cho Ayaba is killing our people in Bamenda, in the northwest, part of your territory, so we cannot talk with you. That is a lame excuse. And according to Mr. Gana, again, to reflect to our case, Mr. Gana is so concerned with peace. No, that's what we've been singing here. No peace without addressing the root causes of the problem. What is the root cause of the Palestinian problem as we speak? It is the occupation of Palestinian land, illegal construction of houses that they will never destroy. So they cannot.
By if I would come in, if I would come in, just give me a few seconds. If I would come in, there is a similarity and very slight differences in all of what you guys are saying. It's about intrusion, occupation, and let's not belabor the point so much. We can't speak for this Palestine.
Yeah, I was leaving it to go to your question.
Narrow it down. You have just a few seconds to conclude on that. I want us to narrow it down to what really concerns us and Philemon Young's involvement. Please. Thank you.
I was coming there exactly. The problem is that each time I have a microphone, sometimes you reduce it to 2 seconds to 1 second. No. Give me the time to put my own points out. Coming to the so-called Philemon Young, when I saw the topic, when it sent out there last night, when I saw it, I was so happy that the topic, UN General Assembly sessions, they did not mention Philemon Young. And this has been my problem all along. The issues we can discuss very, very well if we leave out names. Because the name of Philemon Young, to many people, including me, is toxic. So we start with Philemon Young, we'll go nowhere. We'll not address the issues. So when you put other topic there, My concern was to address what United Nations General Assembly resolutions headed by whoever, General Assembly resolution leadership headed by whoever, Young, you or me, mean and how they arrived at. Once you get to that analysis, in person, we don't leave out the person, then we will know what we expect from Mr. Philemon Young, or from you, Paddy, or from me if I'm appointed there. I looked through that thing. I find that all what Philemon Young was saying there is not relevant to what is coming up now. Because by the official status of the General Assembly, their agenda is adopted at least 7 months before the session that Mr. Philemon Young is sitting up there. They start with a preliminary agenda that will see what they will discuss for the next 1 year when Philemon Young sits there. Then 60 days before Philemon Young takes office, there's an official agenda adopted, 10 items, 5 items. This is what this General Assembly will deal with. And then it is adopted in plenary when it starts. The items from the secretary that will feature in his agenda.
By Mbeseha, I want to understand something. You are saying that whatever agenda has been conceived, doctored, and presented to Philemon Young to present as a puppet, he doesn't have a say. Or maybe the institution, recognizing where he's coming from, he cannot include a sentence that talks about what is happening to his family members, that or his brothers, or the nation where he was born from. I don't understand. Whatever you're saying, actually, is
try to understand. Try to understand. Let me know you understand. I have said his speech there that he made yesterday, 2 days ago, saying what he said, has no relevance on the agenda of what he will preside over the next 1 year. You can say anything.
My interest is about the speech, because that should have been
the speech now. You're trying to make me use your words. I've said whatever you said that.
Important. Why do you talk about other issues?
Well, you're just refusing to understand me. I've told you that 2 months before he takes over office, just like his predecessor, the agenda that will cover the whole period of his tenure is already adopted. The items to feature on the agenda is adopted 2 months before the session starts. In other words, the guy who went away, that agenda was adopted 2 months ago. The final agenda will be adopted on the 24th in the plenary session. That's not yet. So what he says as an individual is not very important. And I go further. I researched and found what this session will mean. What is the theme for this 79th session adopted before even Mr. Philemon Young Council? What is the theme of the General Assembly then? The theme is leaving no one behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development, and human dignity for the present and future generations. This is adopted far in advance. Listen to me now, sir. Let me make my point. I didn't disturb you. This is adopted in advance. He was not even there. If we can fit inside here, it will not be because Philemon Young is there. If we don't fit inside this theme, it will not be because Philemon Young is there or he hates us. That was the principles.
I'm understanding your logic. Before I give the mic to Barrister Gana, I want to ask you a question, and I would like your response to be slightly brief. The question I'm asking you is, based on the theme that you've highlighted, the other conflicts can be involved, but the conflict between the Cameroons cannot be in his address. That's what you're saying.
Whether he cites the conflict in Bakassi, whether he cites the conflict in Victoria, it is not going to feature the job because he cited. I was coming to learn because it has the General Assembly has 3 different sessions. A session can come up, they call it emergency session. For example, if something like what happened in Gaza happens, it becomes an emergency. A member state will propose it to be put in the agenda immediately. It overtakes all other things. It is not because Philemon Young says it or doesn't say it. This is the theme for the year. The other items of the agenda have been adopted. So my point is not addressing Philemon Young as such, But addressing the United Nations, I know how it works, the General Assembly sessions, how they work. And I will refer
If that's
us,
really how
let me land this.
that's
And
how that's how the
no,
general.
I'll refer us to chapter 4 of the chapter 4 of the charter. It defines what the United Nations General Assembly can do and cannot do, how they can do it, how they cannot do it. You
Understood,
can read all
Barrister.
that. It's on
Barrister,
the agenda.
your point has been taken. I want to move forward on that. Barrister Ghana, you're coming to conclude on that because you're not spoken on it. This is Philemon Young, Barrister. I respect Barrister Mbeseha's opinion a lot, but I seem to feel like him, like many other politicians, would opt to downplay the importance of the opening address by telling us about the way the UN works. From my understanding and what the lay Ambazonian or every other person listening now is saying that the way the UN works is that they despise issues of human life and dignity. They despise conflict that probably the Security Council members are not interested in, and they create some vague agenda where a president of the general session will pick and choose the conflicts to talk about, like Philemon Young did, and then ignore the one for Amabazonia, probably because a France is disinclined to have that discussion fostered. It's really, I feel like, sometimes I feel like not being civil with diplomats or politicians the way they look at certain things and want every common man to just think that way. It's unfortunate. Talk to us, Barrister Ghana.
And Comrade Paddy, thank you very much for asking the questions you asked Barrister Mbeseha. And thanks to Barrister Mbeseha for taking time to belabor the explanations, to incisively try to explain what is happening with the UN General Assembly, to try to explain how the procedural functioning works, and trying to explain how the agenda is set, but more specifically and more importantly, trying to explain how the jigsaw puzzle of Philemon Young potentially fits in that entire scheme. So I think I know Barrister Mbeseha was saying, let's not talk about Philemon Young, but I find it very relevant to talk about Philemon Young so that we do not raise our hopes because Philemon Young is there. Why do I say that? Let's look at the history of Philemon Young a little bit. Philemon Young came out of CPC Bali, went through high school in Southern Cameroon, attended the University of Yaoundé. Immediately, Philemon Young graduated from the University of Yaoundé. He studied law there. He was appointed Assistant Minister of Territorial Administration. And he remained minister until 1984. Not too long after Bia came, he remained minister. And he remained minister in some very important portfolios, such as he was Minister of Mines and Power for a very long time. Immediately he lost power as a minister in Cameroon. What next happened? He was appointed the Cameroonian ambassador to Canada. And he remained the Cameroonian ambassador to Canada for about 11 years. And what did he do as the Cameroonian ambassador there? He helped a lot to negotiate loans, try to have the West overlook a lot of the human rights abuses in Cameroon so that Cameroon could get loans from Canada and from other Western states. And so, again, he returned to Cameroon on about 2003, 2004, and he was appointed what? Directly was appointed as as Assistant Secretary General at the Presidency of Cameroon. But something that is very peculiar for you to note is that the same house that Mr. Ephraim Enoni stayed in Cameroon before he became Secretary General at the presidency was the same house that they put Philemon Yang in to stay before he was eventually appointed Secretary General and then eventually as Prime Minister there. Why do I bring that fact? You know, that house that Philemon Yang stayed in, as well as all other houses that he stayed in Yaoundé, which are houses that are orchestrated by the government there, you have to be very certain that French intelligence, because the presidency of Cameroon, we all know, is governed through the French embassy in Yaoundé. You have to be very certain that the French have backed all of those houses. So they know Philemon Yang as somebody who has been in power within La République du Cameroon, and from third, fourth, fifth string verifications from all their bargains of Philemon Yang, they know that Philemon Yang is not going to veer from the script. So before the government of Cameroon even puts Philemon Yang as a candidate to perform the ceremonial role, you have to understand, as lawyers, we understand the meaning of words. He's serving as a ceremonial president of the 75th UNGA General Assembly. For him to perform that ceremonial role, they know that that is somebody that, comes hell or high water, is not going to veer away from the script. So, for all intents and purposes, do not in any way, shape, or form consider Philemon Yang an Ambazonian or a sympathizer of Ambazonians. The same thing as Estimuna, when he was in power, never veered close to any Ambazonian issue. Even when lawyer Dinka was locked up in Yaoundé and tried to get help from Estimuna, Estimuna ran as far away from Barrister Dinka as possible. Same thing with Philemon Yang. Now, the only hope that you have that Philemon Yang might someday embrace Ambazonian issues, you want to know when? Drum roll. Is when power in La République du Cameroon leaves him. Just like Muna became a sympathizer of the Southern Cameroon's cause when power had totally vacated him, when he tried to seek audience with Biya and Biya would not even give him audience. That is when Muna became a sympathizer of the Southern Cameroon's cause. So Philemon Yang is there to serve first the interests of the La République du Cameroon and to serve his own narrow interest. So do not expect him, again, for all intents and purposes, to give us even a no-look pass as to how we can navigate the system in the UN to bring our issue. I know Philemon Yang personally, and how I know him personally is going to end there. I'm not going to disclose any details beyond that. But he is somebody who is not and never going to assist Ambazonia or assist our aspirations while he is in power within the corridors of Yaoundé. And Barrister Mbeseha explained it very right, that he is there to perform only a ceremonial role. He does not have that much of a force in deciding what the agenda is. And for the French to have concurred for him to be appointed the president of for this 1 year at the UN means the French know him to the T. They know him as well as they know their bare naked hand that Philemon Yang is not going to deviate from the role they send him to perform.
Amazing. You see, I agree with the fact that this role, this gentleman, if I should describe him as such, is supposed to play is ceremonial and has been remotely controlled to participate or act that movie mostly by France. But where I kind of have a cold feet is that rhetoric that tries to make us feel like there was no strategic thought to have had him play this role, to have the Ambazonian people stand today and look at a person that was born by an Ambazonian mother and father, sitting and looking at them and making a speech where it matters and chooses not to say a word, cites Sudan, cites every other conflict, and doesn't even say the conflict where I am. You understand? So this is where I'm coming from. I'm talking, Ambazonians watching now. I'm like, yes, Paddy, this is what we would have expected you to say, because we cannot downplay it. I'm just thinking that you are the strategists, you are the advisors of government. We cannot undermine the feelings of Ambazonians in this regard. Barrister Fru, you want to react, please? You have 90 seconds to do that.
Just a few seconds. I don't know whether somebody wrote that speech for Solomon Young and he had no input. If I listen to the debate, he had no input in that speech. Can you imagine just including the conflict in the southern Cameroons and the La Republic of Cameroon on the list of conflict in the world? Do you know what that means? What impact that will make in the world order?
The truth about it is that
I don't know whether
the unrest in Northwest and Southwest. He should have even said Northwest and Southwest.
Yeah, he should at least say that. He should at least say that. But are you telling me that they wrote the speech, the French prepared the speech, whoever prepared the speech and gave him, and he just read it? Or you are saying that he had no input? He had no input in the speech to at least mention that there is an active conflict in two regions of his country, the southern northwest and southwest. Let's bring it down. Is that if I hear the debate, if I hear the real talk, are you telling me that that's what happened? And he was supposed to stay within the program that had already been adopted, which talked about these two conflicts and leaves out the only active conflict on the continent of Africa, from where he was recommended by the African Union to be president of the General Assembly for this 79th session. Is that what I'm hearing? And as even an intellectual, and an intellectual will in looking, we're talking about facts here. It's not emotion, facts. When you mention conflict around the world and you leave the only active conflict on the African continent, what are you telling the world as an African?
Pastor Gana, please say something quickly, please. You want to say something?
I am telling you that there is
I need to say something, please.
Within the United Nations that functions. There's a bureaucracy, and that bureaucracy is heavily influenced by the powers. And whether he wrote that speech or the bureaucracy wrote that speech for him, the final version of what is going to be read is cleared by that bureaucracy. And one, it is cleared by that bureaucracy for him to come and ceremonially read it, and he is not the character that is going to go off script while he remains within the corridors of power in Yaoundé.
Yeah, I think you have just brought the balance there. I'm not sure Barrister Mbeseha should say anything again, because Barrister
I will just say one thing. I will just say one thing for purpose of understanding. Okay, I think if you Paddy and any other ambassador understood that Barrister Gana very, very well, these questions are irrelevant, because nobody, not you, not me, put in that position by Yaoundé. I will know the position of Yaoundé government. We'll go there to contradict the own position of the government, who says, according to Yaoundé, this thing called Ambazonian problem is an internal affair. We can resolve it if there's no problem. But for them, for Tanganji, there's no problem. It's an internal affair. Why will you expect somebody delegated by Yaoundé to take the world stage and contradict his own government? It's not going to happen.
Now
it is important that Ambazonians.
Barrister Fru, I agree with Barrister Mbeseha right now. I agree with Barrister Mbeseha. And the good thing is that Barrister Mbeseha has just used his last statement to agree with us that whatever is happened is intentional, is properly calculated. And that's just the emotion Ambazonians want to
agree.
So Ambazonians need to know that.
Yes.
What I was trying to learn with is, we have this Philemon Young. He's just one of several Ambazonians who have converted themselves to La Republic citizens, including Akere Muna. Do you expect over can automatically muna where it concerns grain
I
for
agree with you,
whatever
but let's
and
move forward.
Mosonge.
There are many of them.
They came to the Amazonian, but they are not speaking for us. We don't need to be labeled that point. They are speaking for Yaoundé, whether we like them or not. They are our opponents in this struggle.
But
So they're not going
we
to,
agree
they're not
that,
going to
but we
complain
are
for
trying
us.
to say that it is not something for us to overlook. That's just our point. What you're saying here is correct, but should we overlook it? I don't think so. And that's where I'm pushing strong. We now need to move forward with the US presidential debate, the polls, and how it's going to impact whoever takes over, and how that should definitely be impacting diplomacy, US foreign policy, and what Ambazonians should be gunning for. That will be right after the break. Stay tuned.
It's another year and another Independence Day for a people at war. Once again, the time has come for Ambazonians across the globe to unite and celebrate their independence on October 1st. A day of pride, hope, and renewed purpose is upon us.
As we mark this significant occasion with cultural representations, dances, military parades from the Amazonian State Army, all eyes will turn to the leader of the revolution, President Samuel Ikome Sako, on the eve of Independence Day. Join us on September 30th at 8 p.m. as President Samuel Ikome Sako addresses the nation. In these trying times, amidst an 8-year conflict with La République du Cameroon, President Sako's words are expected to spark hope and chart a new direction.
While the date for the war to end remains uncertain, brace yourselves for a roadmap towards a smarter prosecution of our liberation movement, a vision full of promise and determined leadership. Prepare to be inspired as we honor our journey and look forward to a brighter future.
Tune in live across all multimedia platforms and catch this monumental speech only on your favorite TV channel. Don't miss this pivotal moment. Together, let's reignite the spirit of Ambazonia.
This Independence Day, immerse yourself in the words of our leader. Be part of history in the making.
Yes, so I'm gonna definitely be bringing up Star Smart, who has a report about the post-presidential debate between Harris. I think that was the first between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. But before she even gets to talk to us about her report and what is happening on the polls, let us watch some highlights of this debate.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking...
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race.
Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now. if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? They have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban.
It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
What we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy.
In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically.
Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us, we won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
Fellow Ambazonians, ladies and gentlemen, ex-team panel, I thought that we had to compress about 90 minutes into just 9 minutes so that we can refresh the minds of people before we get into this big part of tonight's conversation. But I want to find out from you, Star Smart, what is happening with the polls? Can you hear me?
Well, on the United States presidential elections, Mr. Tarh, we saw
Can
the
you hear me?
highly
Can you hear me?
anticipated presidential
I think your
debate.
sound is not in the best. Can the technicians work on your sound?
We can hear her. We can hear her.
Yeah, but there's a sound which I would not like that report to carry the sound. Can you speak again, please?
Can you hear me, Mr. Tarh? I can hear you.
I think the sound has been improved upon. Go right ahead, please. So what is happening with the polls? Talk to us.
Well, Mr. Tarh, on the United States presidential elections, the highly anticipated presidential debate, which we just saw snippets of between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, which took place on Tuesday night, marked the first and potentially only encounter between the two candidates. The debate sparked a flurry of reactions from voters across the country, with opinions sharply divided. Now, Chris Mott, a loyal Trump supporter from Cedar Falls, acknowledged that, from Iowa precisely, acknowledged that Harris was ready for the debate, but also expressed reservations about her ability to bring about positive change. He said Trump can make some positive change. Kamala is all that and no cattle. Now, in contrast, Reisman praised Harris' performance, saying she was remarkable, and criticizing Trump for coming across as irrational and desperate. Now, the debate has injected new energy into the Democratic base, particularly since Harris replaced President Joe Biden as the nominee. Even those who had doubts about Biden are now using more energetic language to express their support for Kamala Harris. I was never a huge fan of Biden, but I would have voted for him anyway. And this was said by one Democrat. But with Kamala Harris, he says he's excited to vote for her. Now, she's got the passion and the policies to make a real difference, is what one Democrat has to say about Kamala Harris. In a surprising move, Pope Francis weighed in on the United States presidential election, describing the choice between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris as a decision between the lesser of two evils. The Pope criticized Trump's anti-migrant policies and Harris's support of abortion rights, stating that both are against life. Francis emphasized that abortion is the deliberate destruction of human life. Pope Francis emphasized that and also highlighted the importance of considering other issues related to human life, such as immigration. Well, Donald Trump has declined to participate in another presidential debate with Kamala Harris before the November election, asserting that he clearly emerged victorious from their initial encounter in Philadelphia. However, instant polls conducted after the debate suggest that a majority of viewers believed Harris outperformed Trump. In response to Trump's refusal, Harris emphasized the importance of another debate, stating that they owe it to the voters given the high stakes in the election. The two candidates are currently locked in a tight race with only 2 months remaining before the election. The first debate, which aired on ABC News, saw Harris launch a series of personal attacks against Trump, putting him on the defensive. Now, these attacks included critiques of his rally crowd sizes and his actions during the January 6, 2021 U.S. Capitol riot, as we've seen snippets of. Trump and his supporters have since alleged bias against the ABC journalists for always fact-checking Donald Trump, but not doing the same to Kamala Harris. The ABC journalist who moderated the debate, accusing them of unfair treatment in favor of Kamala Harris. Now, Trump's decision to forego another debate has sparked controversy, with some arguing that it denies voters the opportunity to see the candidate engage in further discussion and debate. Harris, on the other hand, has expressed her willingness to participate in additional debates, emphasizing the importance of transparency and accountability in the electoral process. So for the polls, the United States polls, we're only hoping that Donald Trump changes his mind about a second debate with Democrat nominee Kamala Harris. And that is all about the U.S. election from our end here. Over to you now, Mr. Tarh.
Thank you very much, Tasmat. That was quite inclusive. You laid down a foundation for us to foster this conversation tonight. And I should begin with you, Barrister Gana. Please talk to us. You've been listening.
Yes, comrades, it's an interesting season and it's an interesting election. It's an interesting election that personally, as a voter and as a U.S. citizen, I am not very comfortable with either candidate. I know a lot of people are going to be shocked to hear me say this, but I'm not very comfortable with either candidate here, as it was reflected in the debates that we saw. Personally, again, I would have loved to see a bigger challenge within the Democratic Party to come up with a candidate. And I also have to say that Vice President Kamala Harris far exceeded my expectations during the debate against Trump. I did not expect her to have such a tough spine, which she did. I did not expect her to be as articulate and as aggressive on the issues, which she was. So she moved me, or moved somebody who was like me, towards that column somewhat. On the issue of Trump, it was perplexing that on a presidential stage like that, and on a global stage, you would import facts like immigrants eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio, which really portrayed the kind of things that the MAGA community believes about minorities and how they use these things to formulate their behavior towards minorities here. Now,
But let me come in there. Let me just bring some fun in there before you continue. Let me just bring some fun. You know, this whole cat issue is just fun for fun. In my wife's village, where you come from, and one Italy, it's a delicacy. And I thought too that Americans are not interested in who eats chicken, who eats rats, who eats cats, and all of that. So it was really unpresidential. It wasn't. And like you're saying, let me cue you in. It tells us the mindset of the MAGA movement, what they think about minorities, immigrants, and the fact that Trump is and continuously will claim that undocumented people will be taking black jobs. So to Trump, a black job is a million job, which is really an unfortunate thing. Please go ahead, Mr. Gana.
Yes, and I have the fortune to have. I mean, I came into this country, into the Midwest, went to college at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, where I graduated from there. I went to law school again in the Midwest in Kansas City at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. While at the University of Nebraska, I was actually a member of a white fraternity there. People who are just like Trump, who think like Trump, and people who are, I mean, I've gotten comfortable in my friendships with them. And so I kind of understand, and I have a lot of friends who are Trump supporters, and I understand how they feel. Now, I cannot say everything negative. I cannot say everything I think about Trump is negative there. Because Trump is somebody who has worked in the business community and understands business very well. And I'm going to give you an example, which I think a lot of people listening, if they didn't know, they might appreciate that. The fact that the infrastructure bill that President Joe Biden passed, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill which he passed, was actually Trump's idea. Trump was the one who put that bill together, but could not pass it through the United States House of Representatives. And when Biden came, he took that bill, dusted it off the shelf, and he passed it. And one of the rationales that Trump gave for coming up with that bill was that when he travels to Dubai, to Singapore, to China, to Saudi Arabia, he looks at their airports and their infrastructure is top notch. And we have American infrastructure falling apart. So he came up with the idea of that bill, but he could not get it passed. Biden got it passed. So in terms of understanding the nomenclature of the business environment and optimizing the performance of American business, I think we should give Trump some plus there. However, the degree of racism, the degree of hatred towards minorities
Mbeseha, you may want to work on your sound a little bit. Try to work on your environment. That is why I keep speaking. Go ahead, Mr.
Yes. The degree of racism, the degree of hatred towards minorities that exist when somebody like Trump is in power. For example, we saw the open murder of George Floyd, the very blatant, aggressive, dehumanizing murder by a cop in Minneapolis. And a lot of incidents like that happened. And we have some of these MAGA racists that are out there, like the demonstration again in Charlottesville, that Trump said they were good people on both sides. So, and again, when you look at Project 25, what they are trying to do to change the Constitution of the United States and to bring new arguments over settled issues, especially issues that have to do with race relationships, you have to veer away from Trump a little bit. So a few pluses in the Kamala column during the debate that happened, though I have to be cautious also, because there are some things that Kamala said that made me see her as running too much to the left. For example, when Kamala said part of her policy plans was to give people who are below a certain income $25,000 to put towards a down payment on a house, I found that to be too socialist. I found that to be too much to the left. Home ownership is supposed to be something that you work hard, you save money, and you put a down payment to buy that house. If you cannot put the down payment, there are rules where your family members can give you gifts to accumulate the down payment that you put towards the house. And I subscribe to the school of Margaret Thatcher that says wealth creation is more important than wealth distribution. Because if you focus too much on wealth distribution, there is precious little to distribute. So, and I think as we run towards November, my hope and prayer is that Kamala Harris is going to come closer to the center and stay there as she governs. But it was a good debate that upped Kamala Harris's potential to be elected as the president of the United States. And again, my hope and prayer, because I'm looking down 4 years. And again, I know I've taken a lot of time, but let me say just one more thing here. When we look at the election of a United States president, it is difficult to imagine what will happen after that president has been elected. Case in point, when we elected Bush 2 in 2001, or he took over power 2001, little did we know that 9 months later we're going to have September 11, and we're going to end up in two wars, both in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And the construct of Cheney's mind and Bush's mind affected how they prosecuted those wars. Now, when you fast forward 8 years later, after the real estate market crash, and you had the election of Obama here, you have to look at some great things that happened when Obama was ushered into power here. We had Obamacare, which was one of his biggest signature bills. But again, you have to look at some of the things that happened under Obama that we wish had not happened. That some people might have wished they had taken back in school. If you look at the way Obama led, it wasn't Obama who led it, but the French and Hillary Clinton pushed Obama to go bomb the crap out of Libya, kill its leader there, and allow anarchy to happen there, and allow arms to flow out of Libya into the Sahel, that ended up destabilizing Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and continues to destabilize those areas. If you look at the fact that through the election of Obama and the influence of Hillary, I'm telling some facts here. We send arms to Syria to help the opposition there. That has ended up destabilizing that country, allowing ISIS and Iran to fill the vacuum there. So if you look at those things, you can say, yes, we are for Kamala Harris, but very cautious about what comes after that. And either way you want to feel about gay marriage as well, you have to understand that the move by the federal government to stop defending marriage as something between a man and a woman, to defending marriage as a civil union between both homosexual and heterosexual couples out there, came under Obama. Now, I mean, either way you want to think about that, it's your opinion. But I'm looking at the debate and looking at the potential candidacies coming. I'm just kind of not very unequivocal about what is going to happen the next 4 years.
I think I appreciate that. But before I give the mic to Barrister Fru and Barrister Mbeseha, definitely their own analysis will be important to conclude it. I want us to look at something that you just said, Barrister Gana, in an interview after the debate. That's just going to take us about 2 minutes.
All good? Okay. Okay, wonderful. Good. Awesome. Madam Vice President, pleasure to meet you. Thanks for your time today. Our audience appreciates your time as well.
Of course.
As you know, we're sitting here in a state and arguably in front of an audience that 54 days from now could decide the outcome of this presidential election. Yeah. You hear it more than I do. People want to know more about you and about your specific plans. At the debate the other night, you talked about creating an opportunity economy. Mm-hmm. I wonder if we can drill down on that a little bit. When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, you know, construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, you know, but a lot of people will relate to this. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn, you know, and I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity, and that we as Americans have a beautiful character. You know, we have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions. So when I talk about building an opportunity economy, it is very much with the mind of investing in the ambitions and aspirations and the incredible work ethic of the American people, and creating opportunity for people, for example, to start a small business. My mother, you know, worked long hours, and our neighbor helped raise us. We used to call her, I still call her, our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small business owners. I learned who they are from my childhood, and she was a community leader. She hired locally. She mentored. Our small businesses are so much a part of the fabric of our communities, not to mention, really, I think, the backbone of America's economy. So my opportunity economy plan includes giving startups a $50,000 tax deduction to start their small business. It used to be $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. But investing in people's innovative ideas and giving them the ability to go for it. Opportunity economy means, look, we don't have enough housing in America. We have a housing supply shortage. And what that means, in particular for so many younger Americans, the American dream is elusive. It's just actually not attainable. So part of my plan is to work with the private sector and housing developers to give them a tax credit, to be able to partner with us as the government, to build, and my goal is 3 million new homes by the end of my first term. In addition, to help people who just want to get their foot in the door, literally. And so giving first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance to be able to just get in the door, and then they will do the work that they need to do to save and to pay that mortgage and to build wealth for themselves and their family. These are some examples of what I mean when I talk about an opportunity economy, and a lot of it has to do with just the community I was raised in and the people that I admired.
Now, I brought in this excerpt of an exclusive interview she had just after the debate because of some of the things you said. You mentioned, I know you're a businessman, Barrister Gana, and you're a successful businessman. Even in your endeavor of politics, the business can also influence your judgment and probably policy statement, if I should put it that way. But this is what I want us to look at. From a strategic perspective, Harris is looking at the middle class that really determines who gets to the White House to a great extent. And she wants to politically appeal them by saying that, hey, you're going to have the full involvement of government, not necessarily from a capitalist or an economist perspective like you're putting it, to say that, okay, we don't want wealth distribution, we want wealth creation. That is economically correct. But at this time, when somebody's looking forward to getting to the White House, can that earn you the vote for the middle class? So, Barrister Gana, I know you would like to react to that, but I'll get back to you when the two barristers would have spoken. I'm coming out to you, Barrister Fru. You have been waiting for too long on this aspect.
Yeah, no.
You heard
yeah.
these other things.
I heard.
What do you?
I think Kamala Harris walked over Trump from the beginning of the debate. Just coming in, she occupied the stage. Because as a lady, Trump was supposed to meet her in the middle of the hall and give her a handshake before they go for the debate. She waited a few seconds for Trump. Trump was not forthcoming, was already on his desk, and she walked over and greeted him and introduced herself, Kamala Harris. From that moment on, she took over not only the issues, but the stage. She was talking to the American people. She articulated policy statements. What are we going to do? What am I going to do as the president? And you heard what Barrister Gana said. Barrister Gana took all her policy statements and, of course, as a good Republican, destroyed it. But let me say this. Trump did not as much as give a pronouncement for one policy speech, for one policy that he intends to carry out for the American people. When it came to Obamacare, he said, what did he say? I have a concept of a plan. Look, all this we're saying now, all this we're talking now is just intellectual exercise. But let me also make this statement. American foreign policy, which concerns us, does not change because the party or the president, a new president has been elected. Case in point, Amabazonia. Trump, when he came on, he suspended Cameroon from AGOA. he placed an arms embargo on Cameroon, and he deported a lot of Cameroonians and Ambazonians. That is Trump. When Biden came, he maintained the sanctions that Trump has put in place. What I'm trying to prove to us is that American foreign policy does not change just because some party or some other person has taken over. The way Trump treated Ambazonia
people. You're just saying here that Trump deported a lot of people, which means that the commander-in-chief can actually...
No. Listen to me now. Listen to me.
Yeah.
Trump came at the time that there was the Ambazonia crisis, the fight. And he suspended, he placed an embargo on Cameroon. He suspended Cameroon from AGOA. And on the other hand, he deported Cameroonians and Ambazonians back to Cameroon. That is Trump. Biden has come. He has maintained the arms embargo. He has not opened up AGOA for Cameroon. What I'm trying to prove is that American foreign policy does not change just because there's a new president. America, there's one thing that America does not change frequently, is American foreign policy. They go with what is on the ground, what my predecessor did, how can I deal on it, or can I adjust it? But American foreign policy remains constant. And I'm saying this, Kamala Harris is going to make a very, very positive, is going to be a very, very positive president for the United States. For the first time for the first time in history, this country, I'm not an American citizen, but I watch. For the first time, Americans are going to elect a woman as the president of the United States. And I don't see her changing foreign policy as was started by Trump. It was taken over by Biden. And it may happen that events will make her or her administration see Ambazonia from a different perspective. Having said that, the threat that the Russians are bringing into the Gulf of Guinea and in Africa, starting with Comoros and Gabon and so on, and of course Central African Republic and so on, is making the American foreign policy vis-a-vis Ambazonia shifting. It is shifting. It is shifting, and it may shift during the time of Kamala Harris because of events taking place on that continent. They have an interest, but La République du Cameroon has done something that is very, very detrimental to us. La République du Cameroon has shared the Gulf of Guinea to all the major powers of the world: China, France, Great Britain, and America. They all have an interest in the Gulf of Guinea. And as long as La République is letting them have our national resources and stealing them with impunity, they don't have any reason to shift. But as I said, the only thing that will make them shift is the presence of the Russians at the corner. And it is very, very real. And La République du Cameroon is leaning towards the Russians as we speak. That is my take.
That was quite instrumental there. One thing I'd want to add to what you would have said before giving the mic to Barrister Mbeseha, we'll definitely be coming back to Barrister Gana to react, is the fact that we debated here, we had this discussion with you, Barrister Mbeseha, and you elaborated on it a lot. How reports have it that the deportations that were effectuated by Trump, where some of it was reversed by Biden,
Biden.
which we thought that was good, because you cannot be deporting people into an autocratic system with all the facts of Cameroon frying babies in palm oil, and for whatever reason you have people in the United States of America begging for international protection, and for some reason, because of MAGAs, that thing that they don't want a lot of blacks, they will just have to deport them.
Yeah. Let me clarify something. Biden did not only reverse that violation of international law, because Cameroon is at war, as recognized by all these powers. They know that Cameroon is at war, and if people are running into the United States, the convention that was signed by the powers, by everybody in the world in 1951, non-refoulement, Trump violated it. So Biden now wanted to correct it. Number two, Biden is passing through Congress now. There is a bill in Congress talking about humanitarian parole. In addition to the TPS that Biden has already put in place. The TPS means you anybody running away from Cameroon, you come to America, you just enter, and they give you a work permit, they give you a driver's license, and so on. But you have 18 months renewable until the war finishes. That is what Biden has added. And I'm telling you, I like to argue that American foreign policy does not shift drastically just because.
That point has been taken and well articulated. So, by Mbeseha, I'm handing the mic to you now. So much you definitely have to say there. Commander Elvis is at the back waiting to talk about the lockdown, and that's where we'll be concluding tonight's discussion. So, talk to us, Barrister Mbeseha.
Yes, these are two things. I take three things important here. The first thing is that we Ambazonians who are American citizens, all of us are not going to vote one way or the other. Some will vote Republican, others will vote Democrats. So the campaign has shown there, whether it is Trump or Harris, are meant to cajole the domestic voters to vote for them. The second thing I know is that come January 2025, someone will be sitting at the White House in Washington, D.C. That person might be Kamala or Donald Trump. And so either way, we'll get one of them sitting there. The third thing I would go further to analyze is that exactly what Barrister Nsoh has said. We are very lucky. This Ambazonia story, we're talking on ABC, this Ambazonia, it has gone through two different American administrations for 8 years, therefore 4 years. It has gone through 2 administrations. Luckily, I've gone through the Republicans under Trump. It has gone to Democrats through Biden. So we have tasted, where the policies change or not, we have tasted American policies under Trump, the Republican, and under Biden, the Democrats. So what does Ambazonia take out of this? Just to expatiate on what Mr. Nsoh has said. When this thing started in 2016, that is when Trump was elected as the president. When he got there, he did what we have heard. He punished Cameroon. But in addition to that, he put out a policy which is very important, which we have been repeating every day. Go to the conference table without precondition and address the root causes of the problem. That's the American foreign policy on that issue. Because Mr. Biden did not change it. He maintained that policy. And again, maybe Mr. Nsoh forgotten, Trump did something very extraordinary, which really happened. He helped organize an informal meeting of the Security Council purely on this issue. And then fast forward, when Biden came in, he did all what we have heard. So there's a continuation. The issue for us is this. Come January, after January, when whoever sits in the office, If you or me has to go to the White House to talk Ambazonia, what shall we be telling President Trump or President Kamala? What is our saying? What are we going to be telling them as far as this problem is concerned? For me, the emphasis will be one. Mr. President Trump, this thing he said 8 years ago and you have left, is not yet gone. Madam Kamara, this thing who said 4 years ago is still hanging there. Yeah, and they have not come to the conference table. We have not been able to negotiate a way out. And this don't take us to our earlier analysis. We were talking about United Nations resolutions, just Assembly resolution. And I put out there, deliberately, the theme for this year under Mr. Spilman Young. The theme includes, if you just permit to quote that section, includes the development of peace, sustainable development, and human dignity. Where is the United Nations Assembly right now? Where the United States, be it under Trump or be it under Kamala, is going to be sitting right there. This is the current position of the United Nations General Assembly. So we'll be telling them, whoever is sitting there, Madam President or Mr. President, you did this, it did not work. It is still now right in the United Nations that has brought us into this trouble. Help us implement this thing, even officially, as put out by the United Nations General Assembly. Help us enforce the policy you put back in 2000. Help us, Madam Harris. Help us what you inherited. Yes, you did not deport people. You tried to bring some of them back. But Mr. Trump, you are the one. Even Trump, if you believe that people eat cats and dogs, we don't care about that. Because there's no way that you're going to find 10,000 Ambazonians sitting at the gates to come and eat your dogs or eat your pets. So that should not be your concern as far as Ambazonians is concerned. If you fear that they can eat your pets and dogs, that fear may be genuine. So help them remain in their country by helping for them to settle back home, so they might not come back here to eat your dogs and your pets. I'm an American citizen. I vote. These debates is not what you and me is having here. He's not going to order where I put my vote. I don't need to say it here. But again, as that is a lesson that we learn from this thing. The foreign policy was tested both ways. The Democrats were tested the Republicans, which, as far as Ambazonia is concerned, is continuous. It's one. So our debate here and going forward should be how best do we benefit from it? Because come January, one or the other will be there. The policy will still have remained intact. That's my contribution to that topic. Over to you.
That's amazing. And that's where I'm bringing Barrister Gana to so that we can conclude that. As you can see on the screen, Commander Elvis for Defense is here. Right after that, we're going to be looking at Ambazonia that has been locked down, and that will be done very briefly. Ambazonia that has been locked down for at least a week already, as the preliminary sessions of the UNGA 70th preliminary sessions begins. What's the significance? What's the objective of the lockdown? Why is it ending now? What do we anticipate? All of these questions will be answered. But first, Barrister Gana, you may want to crown this subject as it concerns or pertains to Ambazonia vis-a-vis US foreign policy and other things of great concern. Please crown this particular segment of our discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Comrade Paddy, and thanks to my senior colleagues who have stated some very strong views, and most of them have been right in what they've said. However, I want to present just a little bit of a different angle, and I want to present that angle first by giving some examples. If we look at some of the 3 recent African countries that have had independence, we look at the case of South Sudan, we look at the case of Namibia, we look at the case of South Africa that got its freedom under apartheid. I don't know if it's a coincidence or what, but all of those 3 countries had those transitions under Republican administrations. And that is something that we should not lose sight of. when it comes to the policies of Republican administrations towards Africa, we cannot lose sight of the fact that Republicans are less eager to act in consonance with European powers when it comes to Africa than Democrats. Democrats cede a lot of ground to European powers, and they give European powers a lot of say as to what happened in Africa during the colonial days, or to act in tandem with Africans' colonial history. I'll give you one strong case in point. The Suez Canal in Egypt. When Egypt seized, when Egypt seized the Suez Canal from France and England, and the French and the English were on their way to attack Egypt, it was an American a head of state who called the French and the English to say, back off. The Suez Canal belongs to Egypt, and you guys are not going to go to war to seize what belongs to Egypt. Again, if you look at the case of South Africa, it was under an American administration, Bush 1, where Mandela was free. Again, you look at the case of Namibia, it was under an American administration whereby Namibia gained its independence. If you look at the case of Zimbabwe, even, Zimbabwe gained its independence in 1980, and that was when Reagan came to power. Now, Barrister Mbeseha, you work with the United Nations in the Ivory Coast. And during that whole debacle in the Ivory Coast, where Obama and the Democrats were in power, Obama and the Democrats ceded a lot of ground to the French to do whatever they wanted to do with that transition in the Ivory Coast, which Republican administrations, I think, would not have been as inclined to cede a lot of ground to the French as the Democrats did. Now, I want to look at how Ambazonia was under Trump compared to how it was under the Biden administration that came under that. As you rightly stated, Barrister Fru Nsoh, the Trump administration banned or restricted arms shipments to Cameroon. But Trump's ambassador, or the American ambassador to Yaoundé under Trump, Peter Ballerin, was more forthright in confronting the Cameroon government regarding the genocides that were happening in Ambazonia, and he publicly numerous times described what was happening in Ambazonia as a genocide, which the Biden administration has not been very inclined to do so. Also, under the Biden administration, Bia, a butcher with blood on his hands, was welcomed into the White House, something that I think would not have been very possible under Trump. Now, we have to look at the good that has happened under the Biden administration, which some of you guys have articulated. For example, the passing of TPS and some of those congressional bills that have happened documenting what has happened in Ambazonia and prescribing the negotiation table as where it needs to happen. Now, the fact that Biden has been able, the Biden administration or Congress under the Biden administration has been able to pass TPS, either it's Kamala or Trump that comes into the White House, is going to be a strong tool for Ambazonia, because they cannot reverse TPS unless the situation that is happening on the ground has been solved. That is why we as Ambazonians need to contribute and keep the fight on the ground, because as long as that fight stays on the ground, there would be no case to reverse TPS. Now, I'm going to end with one note, and a lot of people are not going to like me saying this, but I'm going to say it. If you look at the war in Ukraine that is happening, part of American power that helps to determine global affairs or global politics is the use of deterrence. If you look at Putin, having seized over the Crimea in 2014, that was done under Obama, a Democrat. And part of the reason was because Obama was not forthright in using the power of deterrence in world politics out there. Even Obama was caught on a hot mic prior to the election in 2012, telling Putin that he was going to give Putin some leeway after the elections. And what did we see after the 2012 elections? Putin moved in to seize the Crimea there and foment a lot of trouble in the Donbass area.
Good Republican.
And Russia. So we have to be very, and that's why I say I'm uneasy about the next 4 years because my vote might come down to Kamala. But let's see how the next 4 years unfold. So I just wanted to highlight those points to say, great debate that happened. Thumbs up to Kamala for taking Trump to the cleaner and whooping his butt on fact. But I hope she stays a strong U.S. leader if she gets elected, and I hope she uses the power of deterrence to keep the world from blowing up. So
that's amazing. That was a great contribution right there. And
just one thing, just one correction. One correction. No, just one sentence. One sentence.
Please, yes, go ahead.
Yes. My dear colleague, Barrister Gana, you forgot about South Africa. The Democrats control the Senate and the House, and the foreign secretary, what you call the Secretary of State, Schultz, was a Republican, was the Republican in the White House. You saw what Biden did in the debate leading up to the killing of apartheid in South Africa. That wasn't that was done by Democrats in the legislative branch of government. You saw what Biden said. Biden at that time was the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. You saw it, Barrister Gana, and you cannot ignore that and think that just because apartheid finished under a Republican, the Republicans were the ones who brought about that change. The Republicans, Secretary of State, were talking against the ANC.
The point is in the balance of this conversation.
I totally agree that Republicans at that time, Cheney was a congressman at that time. Even Cheney was against the freedom of Nelson Mandela. I totally concur with that. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to using United States power to change the status of situations around the world, the Republicans are more willing to do that in disregard of what the European powers think. That is the point I'm making.
I think to some extent, I would want to agree with that. And both sides of whatever Amazonians, this is one of the, in fact, this is the best political debate in Ambazonia right now that helps policy makers in Ambazonia as we prosecute the war or advises them on their diplomacy. Whichever, we would have learned a thing and we would have made a determination on how to play our cards, either as independent voters or as a government or as a community. So we get to something that we conclude our discussion of today. It has been an amazing conversation. We'll definitely be talking now about the lockdown. According to the government of Amabazonia, this lockdown was a strategy to they wanted to use the lockdown to make a statement, and the lockdown, it had an initial date that was modified into a new date. The modification is what has been actualized until today, and we really would like to process it. If you're looking at some of the images that are coming from the field, that is Amabazonia. All the marketplaces were locked down. It was a symbol of the fact that Amabazonia is not controlled by La République du Cameroon. The president said something a few months ago. He says, when there is a law in La République du Cameroon and there is a law in Amabazonia, then Amabazonia is winning. He said, if there is lockdown on Monday in Amabazonia and businesses are moving smoothly in La République du Cameroon, then you cannot say that Amabazonia is not winning. These 7 days, or I would say 8 days into the national lockdown, is one of those victories, I would say, without so much effort. some of those victories that we attain without pointing a gun on the head of anyone, without using a lot of resources, but just advocating and persuading the commitment of the people in Ambazonia. This has been a victory, and we will definitely be getting into a serious conversation with all those who are here. I will begin, first of all, by giving the mic to Commander Elvis to talk to us. Generally, would you say today, that is just 2 days away from the date that your department is hoping to officially, actually there's a statement, a flyer that has just been sent out, that the official date ends on Monday. So Monday is the last day, and our people are expected to resume their activities and not as normal. Would you say that this was a tremendous success? And what is the rationale for you people hoping to end it on Monday? Commander Elvis, talk to us.
Oh, thank you, Commander Paddy, for this great outing today. I want to start by commending our great statesmen, Barrister Gana, Barrister Mbeseha, and Barrister Fru. I really appreciate the discussions you had this evening. I was following all along, and I really appreciate your wisdom. It is an opportunity that I hope Ambazonians will not miss, to be able to tap into this program and share your wisdom. Barrister Paddy, thank you again for that question with regards to the lockdown. It is definitely a success story for Ambazonia, because the aim for which we had this lockdown, as initially proclaimed, was to send a clear message to the UN General Assembly that was holding that Ambazonia is a territory that is under our control. We've sent that message. It's very resounding. We want to also start by congratulating all our Ambazonian State Army and all the civilians in Ambazonia from all 13 counties and 61 LGAs for their solidarity, standing tall with the structures that be. As you all know, it's all about building these strong institutions that are able to respond when called to order. And once again, we can see that our institutions are strong. We continue to ask Ambazonians to rally behind these strong institutions. Let us fortify them and let us make them such that they can even be more effective. We do understand that at the initial stage of the lockdown, there was some, I could say, information that was not clearly articulated to the civilian population. But as we did come online and explain to the people, the initial lockdown did had to be adjusted after we had received credible intelligence that La Republic military had also adjusted some of their mayhem that they intended to cause. We did see an example in Mbeseha County where almost 50 civilians were arrested and forced each to pay a fine of about 50,000 francs before their release. I haven't said 50, that's a small number. I think about 300 of them. So those were some of the circumstances which we aim to achieve. And also not forgetting the fact that La Republic military had been reported hiding in some of those schools that intended to, start off. We did not want our civilian population to be in any danger. And for that reason, we had to adjust the dates accordingly. Again, those were just some of the operational security measures we had to take to preserve the life and sanctity of our people. So we want to thank the Amazonia people for this. I think this is number 7 day of the 8th day of the lockdown. We have 2 more days to go. Saturday, today, Sunday, and Monday midnight, the lockdown would be officially over.
We are calling on our people to persevere. We did ask them to buy and stock enough food. In certain localities, we understand that our Amazonian State Army did reach out to us, complaining that there were some circumstances where they had to allow the civilian population to restock again today because of the misunderstanding that some had. And being on their side, they had to give them that leverage. That doesn't mean that council's official lockdown as of today until the 16th, which is Monday night. So again, our gratitude to the Ambazonia people for joining their structures in sending this clear, resounding message to United Nations. Sorry, I had. Hello, can you hear me? And we're just so grateful for the Ambazonian people for coming together as one so we can send this clear and resounding message. Thank you, Paddy.
Thank you.
Over to
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much for that. That was the kind of overview that I would love to hear. And I'm coming to you very quickly, Barrister Gana, as you would be concluding with this statement. Now, the objective of the ANSC, in collaboration with federal government and other stakeholders on the ground, was to send a statement. You are all politicians, diplomats. You know what certain actions would mean. So talk to us. What does this mean? At the time Philemon Young is playing Wayo, at the time when you have confirmed that Philemon Young has been sent as a puppet to fulfill an agenda, we've all agreed on that. At a time when Cameroon wants to tell the world that normalcy is returning, we have the entire nation of Ambazonia locked down. What does this signify? And what are some of the buttons that this can actually press? Talk to us, Vice Ghana.
Comrade Paddy and my senior colleagues, again, it's been a great show. Commander Elvis, we appreciate what you're doing very much. We appreciate what the Ambazonian State Army is doing. We appreciate all those who are making sacrifices in their time, in confronting the enemy in our territory, in our land, in our state. We appreciate what every Ambazonian globally is doing, contributing, drafting, ensuring that we can fund the defense of our people, that we can fund our offensive actions against the enemy in our territory to ensure that our people are protected. Like you said, Philemon Yang has been sent to the UN, not as an Ambazonian, but as somebody from LRC, with the consent of France, to represent LRC there as a ceremonial president of the UN. Philemon Yang represents a pedigree of Ambazonians who are entrenched in French Cameroon, who see themselves as French Cameroonians until they lose power, until things go against them, and then they return to being Ambazonians. What might be happening in the UN does not in any way, shape, or form deprive our right to statehood. It in no way, shape, or form dilutes UN Resolution 1608-X3. In no way, shape, or form dilutes UN Resolution 1514-X3. There were nations that were in our position in the past. There was the nation of Namibia, whose situation equivocates directly to the situation of Ambazonia. But today, Namibia is seated as a full-fledged member of the United States, of the United Nations General Assembly. That will be Ambazonia's case. That will be Ambazonia's outcome. As you listen to that interview, which Comrade Paddy, which you were playing with President Sako, where he emphatically talked about the Ambazonian spirit to resist, being a spirit that you cannot conquer in any way, shape, or form. He said some very emphatic things. Sako said, every wave of resistance is stronger than the previous waves. He looks back at when people like Abendon opposed what was happening to the Southern Cameroons during our independence. And that wave was not as strong as when people like Albert Mukong later on were putting defiance against what was happening to our people. And then people like Albert Mukong were arrested and locked up. And he even wrote Prisoner Without a Crime. And then came the era of Frundi, where our people banded, again, initiated by somebody like Albert Mukong to form the SDF, aimed at defining or defending the rights of the people of the Southern Cameroons, which some people took and ran with it and tried to govern the whole of Cameroon. It didn't work. But the wave that came after that was the wave of when the teachers and the workers banded together in a union to oppose what was happening when French teachers were being sent to teach in our schools, when French magistrates trained in civil law were being sent to govern our courts that were based on common law. That wave has morphed into the armed struggle, an armed struggle that will not die. When Sako said every wave becomes stronger than the previous waves, he was echoing what happened in South Africa when people like Governor Mbeki and a lot of the founding fathers of the ANC in 1912 banded the ANC to peacefully protest against what was happening to blacks in South Africa. And they didn't listen. And in the 50s, people like Nelson Mandela got in and formed the armed struggle of Umkhonto Wesizwe that fought against the South African government, just like what is happening in Ambazonia, where Ambazonians took up arms in 2017 and started to fight against this war that was declared by Paul Biya against our people in November of 2017. And this war is not going to die until our people are free, irrespective of what is happening in the UN General Assembly. The time will come, and that time is not too long from now, when that strength of our struggle, when that punch of Ambazonians fight is going to overcome the enemy and free our people. It's going to happen. So if you are listening to this show, whether you're in Europe, whether you're in South Africa, whether you're in China, from whatever corner of the globe, do not relent, because our plight is right, because our force for justice will not be relegated to the back until Ambazonia is free, until the freedom song is sung in Ambazonia. So as we look forward to the celebration of October 1st, which is our true date of independence, we call on every Ambazonian who did not contribute towards the draft to step up and make your contribution. Because as Commander Elvis said, it takes the force of our actions to be able to enforce things like the lockdown against the Cameroon army. So let's not relent. Let's raise that fist of justice and continue to fight. For our day of independence is not too far. Thank you again, Comrade Paddy, for hosting this show. For our day of independence indeed is nearer, because people like you stand up, because people like Commander Elvis stand up, because people like all our members of the Ambazonian State Army on the ground are sacrificing life and limb to remind all Arisi, to remind the world that the plight of Ambazonia is one that needs to be attended for, and freedom, freedom, freedom will be our last song. Thank you again for this brilliant afternoon.
That was quite remarkable. Coming to you, Barrister Fru, very quickly, and I'd like you to also lend your voice on this issue. When Cameroon is trying to sell the agenda that this is an internal affair, they can contain it, they can manage it, and that normalcy is returning. But Ambazonia, via the wisdom help of their government, has been able to lock down the entire national territory for at least a week. This is quite remarkable. So what impact will this create as world leaders group themselves together to talk about issues in the world. Talk to us, Barrister Fru.
Thank you, Paddy. I must say, since we have been locking down Ambazonia, this is the most successful lockdown that we have seen in recent history. All of Ambazonia from Victoria to Nkambe was locked down completely. And if you saw Victoria, you just saw the pictures showing Mutengene, showing Boya. Everywhere it was total blackout, total lockdown. And that message went. People in the United Nations, those attending the General Assembly, if some of them watch this, I hope that they watch these images. It's a message that has gone. And what will be interesting, Paddy, will be the speech of the Cameroon government at the United Nations this year. If I'm going to be listening very carefully to what they say, whether they will continue to tell the lies that they have been saying that normalcy has returned to Ambazonia. We will be watching. And it also shows that our government, the government of the Southern Cameroon Ambazonia, is in total control of its territory. This government may be in exile, but is very effective through its population. The population respects the laws of this government given out to them to carry out actions like this one. You see, the whole Ambazonia was locked down for a whole week, and nobody, look at the streets, empty streets. This is the best lockdown I have seen since we started this revolution. And I want to congratulate the population of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, the Southern Cameroon Ambazonia, that executed this action to the letter. And I'd like to thank the ANC and the federal government for standing strong and passing this message to the world, including the United States, including France, including Great Britain, the UK. They have seen that we are in control of our land. And what else is left? What else is left? The United Nations is not a friend to the Southern Cameroons. There is an international conspiracy against us. But, like the president was saying, nobody can condemn us. Nobody can condemn us for the actions we are taking on the ground. We send a message without a single bullet being fired. And it is over to the United Nations to think, to reevaluate, to think about what they are doing to us, what they are doing to the African people, what they are doing to the whole continent of Africa, where the whole world is exploiting, and yet we are at the receiving end of what we have, which is our own. The United Nations must rethink its stand. Otherwise, the United Nations is not important to the lives of every African. Africans will have to rethink their allegiance to the United Nations if they continue this way. That message has gone, Paddy, and I want to congratulate our people, and they are listening. They know that they have done the work that they were supposed to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Vice Mbeseha, you've heard everyone say it, and you are almost at the end to say something in this regard. Something Mr. Gana said, which I want to re-echo, is saying that if we have to do anything to ensure that U.S. foreign policy is not tampered with, then we must increase resistance. This is part of a resistance that has proven, contrary to the message Cameroon wants to say, that the people of Ambazonia are in a firm collaboration with the genuine state army or the Ambazonian fighters, to simplify understanding, that the people of Ambazonia are willing to work with their government and to ensure that their nation is free. That no amount of intimidation by the colonial administration will stop our people from giving or from making this tremendous sacrifices that they do make every Monday, every time of the year that we come calling by telling them, hey, we have a strategy. And one thing you have to do for us is just to stay home. And these people stay home without complaining. Some of them are excited to just stay home to see that the nation is prosecuting their agenda. What I want you to really emphasize on is the significance of this collective action or move by the people on the ground, the state army, and the diasporic community. Barrister Mbeseha.
Thank you once more, Paddy. I think, as far as the lockdown is concerned, I think the right message was sent. All stakeholders who have ears to hear and who have eyes to see saw it. Only dishonest people who say they did not see. They saw. What did they see? What message did they carry from it? They carried out Ambazonia, as Tassan said, is not under the control of the Republic of Cameroon. But that's not the most important. That one is now history. The lockdowns in 72 hours will become history. What shall happen after the lockdown from the 17 going down? For us to answer that question, you must look at because until you look at what the enemy says, what your opponent says, you will not know how to address the issue. We have sold this thing as trying to give out a message to the world that we're in control. But Yaoundé did not say the lockdown like that. They saw the lockdown as an attempt to prevent children from going to school. That's their own narrative. That's their own narrative. And so we, as the government of Ambazonia, we did not sell it as an attempt to close down schools. And so if we let this thing pass after 72 hours, what was our position? Our position was that the whole ground zero, the home front, the school, the environment is not school friendly, and that parents must decide what to do and how to send their children to school. That was our public position. So this is just rhetoric for our people, the defense and the security people to take note. If on the 17th, because the lockdown has ended, all school doors are open, everybody is flooding to school, that people would have achieved its aim. They go around the whole world and say, well, everything is over. Everybody is back to school. Normalcy has returned. That will be their narrative. And it will be difficult for us to challenge. So it is the responsibility of our security people and the defense to work out a plan between now and 2007 and the date 17th, which is supposed to end, to make sure that the ground is hot enough to tell children, to tell parents that it's not time for you to send your children to school massively. Because we are still right in our policy to say it is unsafe for your children to go to school. Because the Republic is not interested. When you say go to school, they are not interested in you receiving education. They are not talk less of the quality. No, that's not their interest. Their interest is normalcy. Even if you are going to sit under the branches of a tree, they will take a picture and say, well, school has resumed. Therefore, normalcy has returned. So as a rhetoric, well, I want to advise just Church of Security, in partnership with what Pastor Gana has said, so let the ground be hotter than ever before, so that this end of the lockdown should not be an opening for them to massively rush to school. Because remember, our other groups, opponents in this struggle, have billed it officially for them. Schools must resume on the 17th. That's their own narrative. But we being the government of Ambazonia, we say no, we don't have a date because the environment is still very, very hostile.
Yeah.
If it means contributing more, we must contribute more to make the ground hotter than it was ever before. For any reasonable person, man or woman, to feel so unsafe, to voluntarily send his or her child to school. That's the take home. Because if we don't do this, we fall into the trap of Yaoundé, who will flood the streets. They have all these advantages. They have diplomatic representation. They're going to say, well, everything has returned to normal. See, children are going to school. They will take pictures. They will take videos. They will have their people make messages. And so we must prevent that from happening. That is not for you and me, Paddy, Mr. Nsoh, Mr. Gana to do. The security people have to work out that strategy.
They know what to do.
Yeah, if it means if they need our help in advice, we would, but not on this forum. But that is the strategy. Because unless you think or understand what Yaoundé thinks about the lockdown, we shall not be able to confront them adequately. That said, I think we have
Amazing.
largely succeeded. If it means if it was money that we contributed, I wish that we contribute more to make things worse than they were before the lockdown. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm a Commander Elvis. I'm just bringing it to you now with your last word, so I can release all the other panelists to leave. Your last word on this issue. We have our Independence Day just about 2 weeks away from now. I know arrangements are taking place and a lot of things is taken down. What would you require from a strategic perspective? Just say that very briefly so that we can round off. What you are not obliged to give strategy or any compromising information. I am confident in you. First of all, you are trained to know what to say and what not to. But then, what will you require from the Ambazonian people, both those at the home front and the diasporic community, in our effort to commemorate our Independence Day from your department? Talk to us in conclusion.
Oh, thank you, Comrade Party, again for that great question. I want to commend Mbeseha for those wonderful tips. The security team will take those into consideration. And I want to assure the Ambazonian people to rest assured that as the strategy remains the same, as we confront the various changes in the field, our tactic is also going to change. And increasing the firepower is definitely on the top of the list. For operational or security reasons, of course, we cannot discuss those strategies here. But rest assured that the game changer is apparently on the way. As it concerns the 1st of October that is upcoming, it is something that we want to also call on the Ambazonian population, wherever you might be, home front, diaspora. It is a time of celebration for us, a time when we have to look ahead and see what great nation we have been fighting for, what values we have been defending, and reinstate those values in our people. Let our people understand that those who have already put up the ultimate sacrifice, those very brave ones that had to be the first in the battlefield that lost their lives, that their sacrifices shall never and did not go in vain. We are supposed to show up in our blue and white colors all over the globe, send a clear message again to the international community, let La Republique know that we are not part of them, that we are a separate nation, and we have to get all our structures in place. This is all about building a strong institution like we once had, and once we put those strong institutions in place, the river is going to flow into the sea, and the sea is going to flow into the ocean, and we are going to love that beautiful nation of ours. So we're calling on all Ambazonians from all works of life to join hands. All we need is their maximum participation. For those who have not contributed to assist the AIC in preparations, please, you know where to send your contributions. You could send them through your local government areas. You could contribute those back at home. meet the good guys around the ASA, around your area, and lend them a hand, give them some support so they can be able to have also what it takes to defend the population when the enemy come after them. We understand that the enemy will be having all sort of tricks in the book to try to make sure that we do not send our images of celebration out to the international community, so they don't feel embarrassed, because they keep on telling the international community that we're still a part of them and that they are under our control. Once more, we have another opportunity here to prove them outright wrong in the eyes of the international community and to make our case very strong. As far as the Ambazonian State Army are concerned, they have been receiving proper education and training on how to safeguard our civilian population. We also continue to inform our civilian population of their role in this revolution, letting our civilian population understand that they are the #1 line of defense to our Ambazonian State Army. Anything they say, it is their responsibility to report it to the nearest Ambazonian State Army for proper action. War is won by intelligence, so we need all our eyes and ears. See something, you say something, you hear something, you say something. This would keep your life safe, it would keep the lives of your neighbors safe, it would keep your brothers, your families, and it would keep all of us safe for a better Ambazonia. We are not fighting to die, we're fighting to succeed, so tomorrow we can enjoy the beautiful nation that we all are building. So come October 1st, we're calling on all 13 counties, all Ambazonian State Army in these 13 counties, to make sure that the safety and security of our people is paramount. It is taken as their #1 duty, and that starts not on that day but now. Again, during this lockdown, it was not a time for stand down. You have to continue to chase the enemy wherever where they come up. It doesn't mean that we were not fighting. It was just a time for us to send a clear message, which we have successfully done. So kudos to the Ambazonian State Army, and for actually informing their population during timely considerations, also helping them to be safe during these times. So we are again having another opportunity come October 1st, and we're calling on everybody to join hands, bring everything you got on board. We got to be a star in the sky that nobody can actually deny it.
Amazing.
So on that fact, Comrade Paddy, I just have that to say, and I would like to end there
Thank
for
you.
now.
So as you would have heard from Commander Elvis, this is a time for all hands to be put on deck. I'll be back right after the break.
It's another year and another Independence Day for a people at war. Once again, the time has come for Ambazonians across the globe to unite and celebrate their independence on October 1st. A day of pride, hope, and renewed purpose is upon us.
As we mark this significant occasion with cultural representations, dances, military parades from the Ambazonian State Army, all eyes will turn to the leader of the revolution, President Samuel Ikome Sako, on the eve of Independence Day. Join us on September 30th at 8 p.m. as President Samuel Ikome Sako addresses the nation. In these trying times, amidst an 8-year conflict with La République du Cameroon, President Sako's words are expected to spark hope and chart a new direction.
While the date for the war to end remains uncertain, brace yourselves for a roadmap towards a smarter prosecution of our liberation movement, a vision full of promise and determined leadership. Prepare to be inspired as we honor our journey and look forward to a brighter future.
Tune in live across all multimedia platforms and catch this monumental speech only on your favorite TV channel. Don't miss this pivotal moment. Together, let's reignite the spirit of Ambazonia.
This Independence Day, immerse yourself in the words of our leader. Be part of history in the making.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Ambazonians, we have come to the logical conclusion of this important broadcast where we had the chance to examine very pertinent issues. I'll call them topical issues affecting global politics, issues that have the propensity to tilt or influence our cause in a very tremendous way. Our belief and hope was that you would have learned something and that we would have helped policymakers and lend our voice in the global discussion. I don't have much to say, but I want to call and to add my voice to what Commander Elvis would have said. You have to start your donations now. We hope to have an international press conference with the president. The president also, you've seen that's the publicity ABC is bringing there. We're going to improve on that. Lots of other things. The president is currently having a cabinet, an extraordinary cabinet meeting session right now. I was supposed to be part of it as the director of the office of the president, but unfortunately I'm in this meeting. I hope I will join in because it's going to be lengthy, no doubt, and the president will definitely be laying out plans of how he intends to have the celebrations done in the diaspora, or his vision. I also understand that there is an international town hall like never before seen done by the president. And this time it's not a town hall that necessarily involves Ambazonia. I'm made to understand that the government and some policy makers will be taking questions from individuals of the international community. I know there is a debate on if there is an international community or not, but this will be politicians and diplomats from different countries, men and women that can make different changes, trying to understand our story in a very tremendous way. That notwithstanding, we'll be doing a media storm, and which will be with a press conference. The date for the press conference will be announced next week. We're calling on all donors. It is time for you to, those who are the regular patrons and club members and elite club members of ABC Amba TV, start giving in your donations now, and plus a donation to help in these activities that we have to carry and that we are pivoting during this period. We're also thinking that the refugees and the prisoners of war deserve some form of recognition and assistance during this critical time, as we hope to celebrate the very reason why we are fighting the war. So it's time for you to make that extra effort with your donations and to make sure that our endeavors are enhanced. I wouldn't say much, but you may expect to see me again on Monday. Exceptionally, I don't come live Mondays, but you may expect to see me again on Monday to come and lay out a program ahead of October 1st. Like I'm telling you, a lot is happening, lots of big things. I'm very excited just thinking about some of the things that we have been able to achieve before October 1st this year, and some of the great things that will happen starting October 1st. This is the best time in history for any Southern Cameroonian to be alive, and you want to participate, you want to be an integral part of all of these activities. There is going to be a flamboyant activity that will be influenced by Ambazonians. In somewhere in America, we're going to do great things moving forward in other parts of the world like Brazil. And for those who were not watching ABC Amba News, Pastor Commando, our activist, he calls himself, he has a lot of names he calls himself. He's in Commander, I hope I know that name, has been honored as a humanitarian diplomat. That recognition gives him an opportunity to go also probably not just like Palestine, but he can visit the United Nations General Assembly and sit there as an observer, not necessarily making political opinions. But Pastor Commando, the award he has received gives him the right to sit, listen, watch, maybe make contacts, shake the hands of even Philemon Young, whom you know is a traitor of his own people. That said, it's been Tarh Paddy King for over 3 hours with 4 great men of Ambazonia. I'm talking about Barrister Gana, Barrister Fru, Barrister Mbeseha, and Commander Elvis. Not forgetting the tremendous, intelligent, investigative reports brought to us by undaunted anchor ladies. Until next time, have a beautiful weekend.
It's another year and another Independence Day for a people at war. Once again, the time has come for Ambazonians across the globe to unite and celebrate their independence on October 1st. A day of pride, hope, and renewed purpose is upon us.
As we mark this significant occasion with cultural representations, dances, military parades from the Amazonian State Army, all eyes will turn to the leader of the revolution, President Samuel Ikome Sako, on the eve of Independence Day. Join us on September 30th at 8 p.m. as President Samuel Ikome Sako addresses the nation. In these trying times, amidst an 8-year conflict with La République du Cameroon, President Sako's words are expected to spark hope and chart a new direction.
While the date for the war to end remains uncertain, brace yourselves for a roadmap towards a smarter prosecution of our liberation movement, a vision full of promise and determined leadership. Prepare to be inspired as we honor our journey and look forward to a brighter future.
Tune in live across all multimedia platforms and catch this monumental speech only on your favorite TV channel. Don't miss this pivotal moment. Together, let's reignite the spirit of Ambazonia.
This Independence Day, immerse yourself in the words of our leader. Be part of history in the making.
Menamo Bamata Te kerasine na orangu Te ba kerasine ta wangu Baguru wumna matuzi burka werin banyat Baguru chuba mina borabot Menamo Asasana manyu matana ngubra tongo Aya wuzene ngweneze bajenga bongo Abinga gume chinka ba nya enjo Ka enje maye kumami wa tongo Azwa kung aya soze wa cho Ngwene zara atamba brangra ze Funga tuwa mandega wa cho Fako Yezangana jiga gawa Wamata Ninga gazo che tu umenyivri nyere Zwetiyen chenono choso kwavu komkner Sakor mambia mkaze matem nur Roba wado tieze afagara gwe kumbanga trosa Chita ba wu mka kumbaba wu Bama gwe nanjirambeng bayenda ne sote tuza Wanga bana bea omba mami baba buren bama bena niya fibe Aga mara nang forme kasarame kukwa ban fibe Agunda sine burfu kerabo manevre gwa fo nang chwena jimne Ay chichi awafa aduma Ajuju zabazu izu ubana tongne Azizi gunda burfu kuyato chichi ni yen Bamazu gwa tumbe bo forugumbe gara nyombunga Tuwaza to Girita geng awa yende kona Basa pena bazima nasifa fini Agana sira che win ngwan fa bazui Gwega mochi wit agana sira chup zoba chichi mbanzi Wangni ye jang ye wuzu mbrisi Azira mambu una ngwana za basa chinge Mbankono ni kana fima za bachea tuwana bazachwa manipsa suisunga na wajirita kwa ngwen fa bewa wasabara njirige ayawa wenoka kaba siga wanjirige tuwaza panda akaye kombambeng amano awazurungar bandeng tu machiga awa karangam kabni ingam nitinga uniform chipiko chia tu droj akaba sap song tanu asoba I'm a sobo, Sophie, Chimney Benjim, Nangan Jacka, Achirazaking, I'm a Sonya, Magne, Mama Nangma Achu, Sayanda Copper, a summer sun with 2 minutes at Tinanga. I finding a ambot, quite a bat, I found him a finger board corner. And Nini been at 10 franc nas on a chalk. Kenny Baba woman, I would have been the Tumba Changut. Manamo Margaret Chubamina Borabot.
It's another year and another Independence Day for a people at war. Once again, the time has come for Ambazonians across the globe to unite and celebrate their independence on October 1st. A day of pride, hope, and renewed purpose is upon us.
As we mark this significant occasion with cultural representations, dances, military parades from the Ambazonian State Army, all eyes will turn to the leader of the revolution, President Samuel Ikome Sako, on the eve of Independence Day. Join us on September 30th at 8 p.m. as President Samuel Ikome Sako addresses the nation. In these trying times, amidst an 8-year conflict with La République du Cameroon, President Sako's words are expected to spark hope and chart a new direction.
While the date for the war to end remains uncertain, brace yourselves for a roadmap towards a smarter prosecution of our liberation movement, a vision full of promise and determined leadership. Prepare to be inspired as we honor our journey and look forward to a brighter future.
Tune in live across all multimedia platforms and catch this monumental speech only on your favorite TV channel. Don't miss this pivotal moment. Together, let's reignite the spirit of Ambazonia.
This Independence Day, immerse yourself in the words of our leader. Be part of history in the making.